This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by Ghouls, Primetime, or Adamantium. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob. And gang, this week we've got an incredible show. This show is about a year in the making. It's one I've been excited for a long time, and it's finally here. And I can't wait to share it with you. I've been talking to today's guest for well over a year, and they're maybe one of the most fascinating people I've engaged with online. Um, they work in the industry. They're an actor and a performer. And one thing that really separates them apart from all the others that I followed is she really gives you a peek behind the curtain in the world of acting and performing. I was talking about this with her before the show started. When she has auditions, she'll put up little clips of her audition. She'll share her thrift shop finds and we'll talk about her audition wardrobe and stuff like that. And it's just these little touches that I think are really cool and interesting and something that we film fans who love these movies so much, we don't really get to see unless it's on a DVD extra or something like that. So that's the first reason I like today's guest. But on top of that, she's just incredibly cool and fun and well spoken. She's a movie reviewer and has done some of the best movie reviews I've ever listened to on a podcast of her own. She was an editor, a producer, an actor, as I mentioned. And look, if we had interviewed her last year like planned, I probably would have said, "Hey, you can catch her on the side of some billboards, selling sweet tea," which was a very cool opportunity. But since then, she's done such films as Insidious, The Red Door. She's been in Agatha all along. She was in one of my favorite films of 2024, Saturday Night. And of course, this past weekend, she was in Captain America, Brave New World. So this is a huge honor for the show. More honor than my show can bear, I'm afraid. But please welcome the wonderfully talented, funny, and cool Nadia Robertson. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Oh my goodness, what an intro. I don't even think I can follow that.
All right, well, that's the show for this week. We'll catch
And
you
that's
later.
the end. Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, of course, man. We were having a chat before, and I didn't even cover everything you were doing, but your career has been so fun to watch. And it was funny because we have been talking for well over a year about getting you on the show. And recently, you're like, "I'm so sorry, I just had all these job opportunities." I was like, "Please don't apologize for having the coolest career in the world." We actually were going to record last year, and at the last minute, you're like, "I'm so sorry, I'm stuck on set." I'm like, "Well, that's the best excuse I've ever heard in my life. Like, please be on set. That's amazing." But thank you for being here, Nadia.
Thank you so much. Like, genuinely, so much appreciate connecting with you online and now finally getting to talk to you in real life. Like, this is one of the better things that social media has to offer us is, connecting with people over passions and shared interests.
100% agree. And it's one of those things I was really nervous about doing when, the show's been around for about, we just celebrated our 3 year anniversary. But when I kind of joined the Instagram community with it, I was like, I've seen film fandom online. It's very toxic. And I had even previously maybe been a little bit of that myself. And I was talking to you about that before the show, how I tried to change my ways a little bit. I was like, this might fall apart. I might just meet some horrible people, but I have had no negative experiences. Everyone's been so lovely and welcoming, and I've gotten to talk to all sorts of amazing people now, including yourself. And it's been wonderful. I'm glad you're having that experience as well, because being on the camera, look, I imagine you see all of it a lot more than maybe some of us do. So.
Yeah, it is interesting kind of being a part of kind of all around aspects of cinema and filmmaking because I've worked on basically in front of the camera and behind the camera in pre-production, the making of, and the actual production process. And then I've also been very lucky enough to, on occasion, get paid to write movie reviews as well. So it's sort of
Mm.
being a part of the process, nuts to bolts. Um, Seeing it, in my lifetime of a career working in the industry to, starting out with the conception of a project and then also analyzing it in its completion. So it's kind of interesting to get the perspective from like all of that experience and then now, be able to actually like really be a part of the movies as well. And then working on them and then seeing friends and colleagues, like how they perceive it and respond to it when it comes out. It's just a very interesting thing to be a part of. I'm very grateful, but it is sometimes almost meta in my own life. Like,
Well,
it can
you
be
were
a little surreal.
you were telling this wonderful story before we started, how because you do a lot of background work, and as I said, you're in the most recent Captain America, and you were saying that now one of the hardest things for you is you don't look for yourself in the movies, you're looking for your background friends, and you're like, I have to focus on the story, I have to focus on the story, which I thought was very charming. Um,
Oh, it is honestly, especially in the really big, sequences, especially in the action sequences, like the one that I'm in Captain America. There is, a lot of commotion and camera movement and action and quick edits and a lot of people. So
mm,
especially on those days, like that wouldn't be considered like a cattle call day because I don't remember exactly the BG count for that scene, but normally cattle call would be considered probably 100 over people, and I'm not quite sure, maybe there was 100 people for that, but it was in a small space, so it's a lot of people in a small space, and when you've got all that ruckus going on within the scene, it can be very hard not just to try to catch yourself, but then also you're like, okay, I remember all the people I met on this and all my friends that I got to work with, and so your eyes are just trying to go like a million places at once, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm actually supposed to be watching the movie for the movie. So
that
a
was
lot of
a
these things I need to go back and rewatch that I
yeah.
worked on because when I see it in theaters and the screen is so big, I just feel like I'm in Alex and a Clockwork Orange, except I'm willfully have my eyes pried open because I'm trying to capture like all the visual information, like the plot in the movie itself and the dialogue, while also like trying to look for that third person 30 yards away from the camera crossing the screen for half a second and be like, wait a minute, that's my friend.
It's too funny. That's something I can relate to a lot. I think any of us who have gone to film school or studied film, like one of the biggest problems we get is we learn to overanalyze the film and we stop enjoying it for what it is. And I know that was a big problem for me for a long time. Yeah, yeah, this is entertaining, but like mise en scène, guys. Let's talk about the way this is set up. Let's talk about the color and why that color. Let's really do. Why did she wear blue? Does it signify her freedom? Like, yes, so I know the idea of going into a film just wanting to detach and then getting caught into the other details instead.
So wait, that's interesting. I have to ask real fast. So do you feel like uh delving into the nuances and details and visual information and thematic resonance of the film, like do you feel like that sometimes pulls you out of the film as opposed to bringing you further in? Because for me, like I feel like I see what people say about being analytical in the moment versus just
hmm,
taking the film in as you're watching it for the first time and just letting it wash over you. But I feel like after a certain point, it's just hard. You can't turn that off anymore. Once you be, I mean, it's almost like you took the bite from the snake in the Garden of Evil, and now
hmm,
your eyes are open. Like you can't just go back to films being pure entertainment. And at what point in our lives was it ever just pure entertainment? Like I even question that. Like when
hmm.
you have any kind of cognizance, I feel like you just naturally start to analyze in whatever way your mind can in the moment in that period in your life and how it even relates to you and things in the world. So I don't even know if there how much of a time there even is where we're just watching a movie glazed over just 100% like face value, not relating to it or delving deeper in any way. So for me, like especially at this point in my life, I feel like even though I can't really divorce myself from that thought process anymore as I'm taking in a movie, I feel like it actually brings me closer to the film. And I feel like I'm kind of mind melding with it.
Yes. No, I understand what you mean completely. I think you're right. Like once I learned to analyze this that specific way, it never went away. But what I have gotten better is compartmentalizing. So there will be
Mm,
some films like if it's something particularly technical, like I find something that's technical and maybe not as emotionally driven. So something like Dune, recently, I think is a technical masterpiece. And because it doesn't maybe have that same emotional heart that something of a similar caliber film would have, I was a little bit more detached and just more looking at it from a technical standpoint, but I didn't get sucked into the story as much. But then there are others I think really do both, and I can kind of compartmentalize a little bit better. Like if it's got a really good story. It's got a nice, strong emotional connection. I can kind of lose myself in it while subconsciously, I think, breaking down those elements. Because
Exactly.
I never really thought of myself as an analytical person when it comes to talking about films. And then I did a bunch of podcasts, and like, oh, it's nice to have someone who's analytical. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't realize I was, but okay, good. Like, I'll put that on my resume. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
I do think it's a skill to compartmentalize while you're watching, because to me, the biggest thing I get messed up on is part of probably an undiagnosed ADHD brain is that
mm,
when I am watching something and my mind starts to get caught up in all the
mm,
analysis or the things that I'm noticing, or it makes me think about or makes me feel, but and it feel in like an analytical way, not just pure emotional resonance. And I feel like I get so caught up in my head about thinking of all the things about the movie that then I'm like, it almost feels like daydreaming for 10 seconds or however long, where
mm.
you almost kind of like your mind focuses again and you're like, wait a minute, did 5 seconds just pass of this movie and I missed something because I was
Yeah.
like in my own head thinking about the movie while it's playing, So that's my biggest pratfall, is sometimes missing parts of the movie because I'm like falling down the rabbit hole in my head of something I
Yeah.
just saw or heard in the movie I'm watching. So,
Yeah, I've done that as well. Actually, I noticed it recently, and it wasn't a technical aspect, but it was a character moment and a story moment. I've just been rewatching the Die Hard franchise, which
mm,
I haven't done in a couple of years, and obviously, like, wonderful franchise. And I hadn't seen four in a long time. I do like four. I think four is quite underrated. And I watched it the other day, and I just watched it back to back with the first three. And I was like, oh, I was like, this is not the Die Hard franchise the way it was before this. Like, if you watch those first three, like, yeah, there's action and violence and there's tension, but like John McClane's pretty fun loving and like he's got a bit of a smirk and he's, kind of this charming cowboy. Die Hard 4 is laced with paranoia. Like, this is not the fun loving John McClane anymore. Like, he is mean spirited at times, like he's brutal. And like, this is obviously the first Die Hard post 9/11. I think that has a lot to do with it as well because
oh,
the idea of homeland security and like kind of this fear of the internet and cybersecurity. Um, and it's a very different film. And like I was doing a review for it, hasn't gone up yet. And I was like, I almost hesitate to call it a Die Hard film. Like, yeah, all the earmarks, and it's a great film, but like it's not like this John McClane is like not here for fun. Like he's not here, like he's not the swaggery hero that we saw him in the first three. He's a different man in this film. And I wonder whether that's also because it's a different point in Bruce Willis's life. And I know obviously there's that heartbreaking, kind of realization now that we know he's been dealing with some health problems for quite a long time. So I wonder whether that informs the performance. But yeah, it's so I that was my most recent one. I'm like, hang on, this isn't Die Hard. Like it is, but it's not. Like, what's going on? So um
wow. That makes me, well, now, I mean, that's always been a blind spot for me. I haven't seen any of the Die Hards, which is
oh, okay.
every Christmas it comes around to kick me in the ass again because, there's just the ongoing debate about it being a Christmas movie or not. And I'm like, I can't participate because I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I was taking notes. I was like, because my wife, she's like, it's not a Christmas movie. I'm like, I don't care that much. Like, I do believe it is, but I don't really care for the like the back and forth too much. But when I was watching it the other night, I was like, I'm just gonna take note, and I stopped counting. But I did pull about 20 Christmas references. Like, there was a Christmas tree. There's
Mm.
multiple Christmas carols. There's a Christmas party. I'm like, I think like that's probably enough to justify it's a Christmas movie. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
haven't even seen it, but I'm on the it's a Christmas movie camp.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
just from what little I have seen from clips and stills and just heard of the discussion, I'm like, this sounds like a Christmas movie.
mm. But going back to talking about you doing the reviews and you having your own analytical mind, that was one of the things, as I mentioned at the start, that really attracted me wanting to have a talk to you about films because I listened to some of your reviews. I was telling you before, like I was literally working at my desk, doing my full-time job, and I was like, oh, there's another Nadia review. Let's listen. And it was the Love Lies Bleeding you talked about, which was a fantastic review. But
Mm.
your immaculate one is something really special. Like the way you were talking about characterization, and I can't remember what it was. It's a phrase you use, and it was like Sydney Sweeney is the kind of girl who you want to tear the innocence from her flesh. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this this woman knows how to talk about movies. This is amazing, and it was such a wonderful discussion. I listened to it a couple of times. It's fantastic.
Dang, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it because it's funny. Like, I am honestly so exhausted and tired, and
Mm,
usually doing these podcasts. You know, I put that in quotes because there's zero production value. It is literally just me picking up the phone, hitting record, and just talking as if I have you trapped on a phone call with me for 2 hours and you can't say anything back. That's my podcast. So whenever I'm doing that, it's usually when I've uh, gotten off work if I have time and I could rush to a movie, which is usually late night.
Hmm.
And then so it's like midnight or later sometimes when I'm recording these podcasts, like in the parking lot
Mm.
of the movie theater. Like I'm pretty sure with the Immaculate one and the Love Lies Bleeding, I feel like I was sitting in the parking lot the whole time and the security guard like circled the car 20 times, probably being like, what's she doing?
You
Because I'm just
definitely mentioned on the recording that's exactly what you're doing.
but so yeah, like it's just funny because when I go back and listen to these things that I've recorded talking, or even like some of my writing reviews and stuff, it almost feels like an out of body experience. Like, did I think this, say this, write this? Like I'm just so tired when I'm doing it, and that when I go back and listen to it, I'm like, this is just crazy. Like that's me. Like it just feels
Mm.
disassociated from it.
It's
So
I
yeah,
always find that funny. Like sometimes like I'll say something and like I'll listen back, I'm like, oh, that was kind of profound. I'm like, well, I can never admit to that. I can never say that I said something profound because then I look like a real d-bag. But like sometimes you do say things about like, oh wow, I do agree with myself actually. Yeah, no, I love listening to you talk about movies. I haven't checked in a little while to see if you've got anything else up there, but um very enjoyable content for me. I would be happy to have a Nadia Robertson, podcast every week. That'd be amazing.
yeah, I definitely want to get better about doing them. It's just, yeah, by the time I'm done with the movie, like it's a rough catch 22 kind of situation because I was tired usually before the movie, like tired
Mm,
enough to be like, will I even make it through the movie? And of course, every time the movie that I'm going to see is so engaging that then when I'm out of the movie, I'm like super pumped, like,
yeah.
mentally about the movie, but then also I'm exhausted and physically exhausted. And so I'm kind of sitting in my car afterwards being like, do I want to sit here for another 2 hours and just talk nonstop? Or do I want to go to bed? So, and then I think, okay, what's easier to get all these thoughts out? Because I mean, it's tough. It's like I'm tired, but it's just like thoughts racing a mile a minute when I get out of a movie. Because, like I said, even when I'm in the movie, I have a hard time
Mm.
like keeping the racing thoughts down so I can actually not miss the movie as it's playing. So I love the idea of getting out of a movie and just talking about it all night. Like that would be like my dream
Mm.
scenario. If I didn't have anything work the next morning or anything else to do and just infinite energy and mental bandwidth. But yeah, if I don't do it the night of, then it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, do I type all this out on my phone, which
Mm.
is how I write all my reviews, this old ass phone, which has more typos than correct words, no matter how much I try to fight it. Like it is so obstinate. There will be times it will autocorrect to something that's not even a real word. And I'm like, why? It's not that you're autocorrecting to a typo. And then when I try to fix it, it will keep automatically autocorrecting back to the typo. I'm like, why is this in your CPU like vocabulary? Who taught you this? It wasn't me. So yeah, it's either okay, spend however long writing all that out, which you've seen a lot of my reviews. They are, like I said, my long legs one was longer than the Facebook word count limit, which I didn't even know existed until I wrote that review and tried to post it. And it was like, nah, girl, we don't got time and space for this on here. I'm like, oh, okay. And
Uh,
so, yeah, it's either, write it out or talk it up. And even though I want to so bad get all the thoughts out, because it can be like haunting at times. Like I will be thinking about a movie I saw for however weeks, months sometimes afterwards, and having this review and all these thoughts I want to get out there just to honestly purge them to make
yeah.
room for new things. Because
Yes,
I
yes,
feel
yes.
like my brain can only hold in so much at a time. So if I'm thinking about a movie I saw a year, 2 years, three. And there's so many movies I've seen I want to write reviews for, and I never did, whether I didn't have the time, the energy, or whatever happened. And now it's all swirling in my brain, and I'm just like, oh, I'm haunted. Like,
That's
just want to go
that's
out.
why I get other people to bring their five favorite films, 'cause it gives me a chance to vent. If I'm like, oh yes, you brought up that movie. Like you mentioned a movie we're going to talk about later, and I'm like, finally, I can talk about this movie. Like it'd be great. It seems like you talk about movies the way that I talk about movies, which is you talk about them longer than the runtime of the actual film.
Oh
Uh,
my God. Dude, like when I did my Evil Dead Rise podcast, uh, it may have been you. I don't even remember. Someone brought up, they were like, yo, you talked about this longer than the actual movie is, right? And I was like, now I
yeah, but that's a
do.
pretty short movie. There's a lot going on in that film you need to talk about. Um,
There was, it was a lot better than, I thought it could be. So I was
mm,
like, there's a lot going on in this. So
yeah.
but that's what's great about cinema is it's that unpeeling of the onion, the
Hmm.
Russian doll thing, just layers after layers. And, as it's something you can get caught up in. And I like to get caught up in it. That's the thing too. It's something I actually do enjoy doing, even though it is mentally laborious.
Yeah. Yes, as someone who's been doing it for over 100 times now, it's very laborious. Yes, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I always talk of like, if there's a way to get paid to do this, to paid to talk about movies, I would quit my job in a half. I love my job, but I like talking about movies more. So now I do want to talk about where it all began, but before I have to bring it up. You've worked with maybe two of my favorite people in Hollywood. You've worked for, of course, the incredible Patrick Wilson, and of course, um, Jason Reitman as well. I think we might talk about Jason Reitman a bit later. But what was that like for you, who's obviously, based on what I understand, a fan of both these directors? What was that like for you? What was that experience?
Well, I'll start this off by dropping a third person real fast because we talked about Die Hard, which I
Hmm.
haven't seen Die Hard, but I do have a weird, like, you know, Kevin Bacon esque kind of connection, even though he's not in either of the movies. But, that sort of weird, small world Hollywood sort of thing where
Mm.
actually when I was living in LA in my earlier starting out years, I actually ended up being a production assistant on a student AFI film, which ended up being Ari Aster's student film at
Wow.
yep, AFI. And I forget her name, but the lead actress of the film was actually John McClane's wife, the actress who plays
Oh, Bonnie
her.
Bedelia.
So she is in Munchausen. That's the movie I worked on, and she plays the mother in that. So people
Okay,
were
so
like, "Oh my God, the
you did bury
diehard!"
the lead. That wasn't like one cool thing. That was a couple of cool things. Ari Aster, who's arguably like the biggest name in horror right now, and Bonnie Bedelia, who is a national treasure. Very cool.
So yeah, you never know who you're gonna end up working for that becomes big, So
Mm,
like when Midsommar came out, I hadn't
mm.
heard of it or anything. I just like saw it, I guess a trailer for it, or even might have even been when I went to go see it in the theaters. But when his name came up, I was like, Ari Aster. I was like, that sounds familiar. It's like, why do I know that name? And then I looked him up and then I saw Munchausen on his IMDb and I was like, oh, that's why. I worked with him. How cool. He's really nice, by the way. Very chill, very cool. It was a great set experience. And which, by the way, too, another tie-in, which will have a tie-in to one of my favorite movies that I'll be talking about, is I believe it was for this film that we actually shot at a house that was across the street from Marty McFly's dad in Back to the Future, where he is peeping on, or I guess technically it's Lorraine's house,
Yes,
and
yep, yep.
where he's peeping from the tree across the street. So we shot a scene there, which
Oh,
was
that's
like,
cool.
oh, this is just cool upon cool.
Yeah, Back to the Future is in my top five of all time. So like that's very cool. I love Back to the Future. Um, oh man, I'm glad to hear Ari Aster's a chill guy. I feel like to make those movies you have to be. I don't think an anxious person could make Beau is Afraid. I think like an anxious person would probably explode trying to make that movie, and even the other two as well. So I'm glad to hear he's a chill guy. He
Yeah,
does
it must
seem
be some sort of therapy or something for him. Like he just channels all of the trauma, neuroses like into those films. Either that or he's just like a total like even kill guy with no trauma at all, and he just has like all these fucked up things in his head that he's thinking
Yeah.
about. Like it's got to be one or the other.
Yeah. Nice one. Very, very cool. Oh, that but Miami Fly House. That story is cool. I am the only cinema house I've ever been to. I was in LA for a week about 7 years ago, and we went to Nancy's house from Nightmare on Elm Street. So that was my little.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I've been to the Michael Myers house in
That's cool.
Old Pasadena, I think is where it is. But I don't think I ever went to the Nightmare on Elm Street house, which is sad because I guess I missed my opportunity because I saw they've had a slew of owners over the years, and especially the new one seems to really not appreciate visitors and has like gone
Mm.
really out of their way to like block the view of the front of the house with like
Ah, that's a
plants
shame.
and everything and put up sign at the gate. I'm like, why buy the house? Like
Yeah.
you know what it is. And I get the housing market, particularly in LA, is bad. And I guess you got to get what you can get. But like, don't be a dick about it. Like, you bought the Nightmare on Elm Street house. Like,
But
like
is the
buy
housing
another
market
house.
so bad that you're willing to potentially welcome Freddy Krueger into it? You're like, look, I know the house,
I mean,
this is a cheap house,
exactly.
but it does come with a dream demon. So,
I, you know what? I'm sure people will be like, sold,
yeah.
sold. Get it while it's hot. It'd probably be off of Zillow in a day and a half.
Yeah. You know, if it was
Uh,
Count Orlok based on that new Nosferatu film, that'd be snapped up in seconds. I've seen the memes. I've seen everyone online. They're all after Orlok. So,
but yeah, to talk about like working on Insidious 5, that was just really a stroke of luck
mm,
because that was I think they did like a week of reshoots here in Atlanta.
mhm.
Back in what was it, 2023? I'm trying to remember now. I think April 2023. I'd have to go back and like look
That
at
sounds
my
about right. I think it was a 2023 release. That does sound about right. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't
Listen to me
yeah.
telling you who's in the film when I'm like, yeah, listen to me, Nadia. It definitely came out.
Well, it's just also too when you start working on more and more projects, they kind of run together in the timeline in your head. So you're like,
Sure. Yeah.
okay, when did this movie come out? When did I work on it? So like, yeah, it was just I think it shot in New Jersey maybe and some sound stages there, but then they
Hmm.
had to do the reshoots, and so I guess I don't know if it was just more practical for scheduling or maybe like the studio warehouses were booked later on when they, in Jersey when they wanted to maybe reshoot there. So they had to look elsewhere for some place that had availability. I don't know why they decided to come here, but I was grateful because I ended up getting booked on it. And it was cool because when I saw the casting call, it was actually originally for ghouls. So I was like, ooh, that would be cool to be like one of the ghost demon things
Yeah,
in
that
an
would be
Insidious
cool.
movie. Yeah, and I thought it'd be fun. Like I haven't really done really heavy makeup stuff yet and for a movie. Like I know a lot of people, like makeup artists and background and crew who worked on like Guardians of the Galaxy when it was here. So
Yeah.
like I know people who got to do all this really cool alien like makeup and be in the full body costumes with the contacts and all this, which sounds like a lot. And honestly, you don't get paid more. You do get paid more for that, but it's not as much as like you would think it would be given like how extra early you have to come to get into all of that before you start filming and like just the difficulty of being in that all day and like it's not like something you can get out of during your lunch break like
No.
like you're probably eating in those prosthetics and the contacts stay in, for 16 hours a day or however long the shooting day is, which I imagine there was no short shoot dates on a film like that. It's just everything is way too involved.
Yeah, I can't imagine, especially that first. I think by the third one, they probably figured a lot out because that's the way those films tend to go. It's like the first one, it took 12 hours to get the prosthetics on, and then by the last, one,
Mhm.
like we got it down to a neat 5 hours. I'm like, oh my goodness, 5 hours? Like that's not short. That's like telling me like we've gone from a 12-hour flight to a 9-hour flight. I'm like, that's still a lot.
Yeah. And even still, that would even just be for mainly the main cast who they've been
Mm,
doing the same stuff on all these years. But for all the extras and the new characters, this would be the first time they're doing that. And
mm,
so that, and especially too, if it's a scene where it is almost like a cattle call, where you've got like a big scene where they're on a planet in town or something, and there's all these aliens walking around and stuff. Um, they're going to have like 100 plus people come in and all be put in those crazy alien prosthetics and makeup and stuff. Like they probably had to come in at like 3 in the morning or something.
Yeah. Or if you think
Like
about it in
they
that,
could come in as early as 7 hours before they film.
yeah.
Depending. I don't know. I've never done that level. I'd love to one day just to to say I did it and experience it. But this was kind of the closest thing at that point.
Hmm.
Um, Other than I guess the only other thing I've really done with any kind of like that kind of makeup, which didn't involve prosthetics, but it was my first time I had fake blood put on me for a movie other than a movie that I was making or a movie. And even then, I've used fake blood for movies and I've also used real blood for movies. So, and by
Oh,
real blood, like
pig's blood or
pig's
something like that?
blood,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
from the butcher. Because there's a like my college thesis film, we actually got pig intestines from a butcher for some scene where someone gets gutted. So
Wow.
yeah, one of my friends actually like stood there like with real intestines like in his hand, and I remember he was like trying not to throw up. He was like, "Oh God, let's get the shot." Literally.
That that might be the most art student thing I've ever heard. Um, that is doing it for the passion of it all. Can people find your student short? Is it somewhere available or is it tucked away?
It's called Urban Decay, and it is on YouTube or Vimeo. But yeah, it's funny. It's actually there's a tie-in to that I was going to bring up on one of my to do with my top 5 favorite films. So I'll save that for that. Some
Yeah.
inspiration for that movie from one of my favorite movies that I used for my student film. But yeah, like other than doing that with like friends and stuff for just our own personal projects and for student films, hadn't really dealt with a lot of like makeup effects stuff except for in 2022, one of the first, not the first thing I started doing when I started to kind of make this more of my job, but one of the earlier things that it kind of got me um into at least Atlanta background work was actually working on, I guess it's still on Paramount Plus because it was Paramount Plus show. I don't know, like they make their own content go away after a certain point. But Wolfpack with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that was really big for me
Yeah,
because
it's
I am a
huge.
huge Buffy fan and
Yeah.
love her. And I know you did last summer and just love her in everything I've seen her in. I love a movie that no one else has probably seen but me, called Simply Irresistible, which she
Yes, yes,
plays.
yes, yes, yes.
What? Really?
Yeah, I would have seen it. Look, I don't remember much about it, but I would have seen that when it was released in the video store because I have a younger sister and she was a Buffy fan as well. I think I would have seen Simply Irresistible. I've got to look it up now to make sure I'm not talking
Oh my
nonsense,
God.
but
Well, it's also a cooking movie too, so it was like two of my favorite things. Sarah, it was like Buffy, and it's like a foodie film. So I was like, I'm signed up. And then obviously Cruel Intentions, which had I
mm,
think probably the first lesbian scene I'd seen as a kid. Like, so I was like,
yeah.
okay, girl, get it. So it was just amazing when I got to work on that, and I played a dead body. And I think to this day, it's the only time I've played a dead body up to this point. So yeah, it was cool. I am wolf pack a werewolf victim. So I'm werewolf fodder. I have been attacked and thrown down an elevator shaft. And I just got lucky with being placed in the scene where I got to be like at the very top because it was like a pile of us.
Yep.
Is like this werewolf has been on like just a rampage in this town and has killed all these people. And I guess his little like den is in this abandoned building, and so he like drags his dead body victims and like drops them down this elevator shaft. And so there's just a pile of us, and it was just really cool because like not only have I never been a dead body before, but like I'd not been a dead body. Well, I say that, I guess I've been a dead body again in like student films and films I made, but never like in a production of that caliber.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, and so it was cool the way they did it because it was a mixture of like real people, like me and my other fellow BG members, but then also they had dummies to make
Okay.
it a bigger looking pile than it was because they didn't want like real people just totally piled on each other. So basically they had the pile of dummy dead body people and then placed the real dead body people amongst that,
Yep.
and over carefully overlaid our arms and limbs on top of each other, so we were like entangled, but like no one was touching anything they shouldn't be.
Yep.
'Cause- so it was like funny because since I had to be placed on this pile last, because I got to be on the top of the pile, I had to like crawl over a pile of like all these dead bodies, and like I had to lay on my back. So when I had to like lay down, they had to place my arms and legs here and my head here, and I'm like trying not to step and elbow and put all my body weight like on anyone's actual body. So
Yep.
like, and then everyone's layered and piled on top of each other. So like, I'm putting my hand on a thigh, and I'm like, 2 seconds before I touch it, I'm like, please God, don't let this be someone's crotch I'm about to grab. And you don't know until, I mean, everything looks so real. It was hard to like tell, and it was dark in there and smoky because it's supposed to be an abandoned warehouse. So, the set itself was kind of hard to, kind of see everything totally clearly. So you don't know until you put your hand on it and it kind of had a give to it. You were like, okay, this is the dummy, not a real person. So every time I stepped and moved getting placed, I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I am not trying to grope anyone. Like, just a heads up. And so that was really, really fun. And we had to be still and not breathe and stuff. So that was really cool doing that. But like after I did that, this like Insidious was when actually I was like, okay, another chance to do makeup stuff.
Mm.
So I was like, that'd be cool. And so the casting call actually had it was for people I think in their 40s to 60s, maybe is what they wanted.
Yep.
And I was like, well, technically, that's not something like a category that I'm in, but I've got these gray hairs. And
Yep.
like,
It's very much like it's a very definitive part of your look. Like, and I know like it's such a like an old Hollywood trope, but like if a young woman has gray hair, like they're immediately dyeing it. Like that's the dirty little secret. Like you don't know how old anyone is because they're constantly doing it. But I really one thing I really dig about your look and the way you kind of present yourself is you're like, yeah, I'm embracing the gray. Like it very much I think sets you apart from so many other performers, like because you're like, I'm just embracing it and doing it. And it seems like everything you've done, no one's tried to hide it away, which is kind of nice as well.
yeah, I mean, honestly, personally, it's just the path of least resistance. So
Yep.
I'm like, it's cheaper not to try to diet all the time. It's less of a hassle. It's less of a headache. Financially, it saves a lot of money not
Yeah,
to
for
be
sure.
trying to do that. And because I have dark hair too, I can't just like cover it easily. Like I didn't even know this, but until I started getting enough grays that I was like, wow, like what do I want to do about this? But apparently you can't, even with silver hair, it does not take color, even though technically it has no color. You still have to bleach it
Oh,
to dye.
wow.
And I was like, what the F? Like, if I bleach it, it's just gonna fall out. So no, thank you. I'd rather have silver hair than be bald. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, never mind. So I was like, let's just roll with it. And so I honestly get compliments a lot on it.
Mm.
Interestingly enough, Anthony Mackie on Captain America complimented my hair at one point. Like, I was like, oh, okay, thanks.
That's
Like,
he seems like a very sweet dude. Like he seems like the kind of guy. Like he seems like very he's been doing this for a long time as well. Like I remember when he first showed up in like 8 Mile, but he seems like he hasn't been changed by being in the system for too long. He seems like a pretty good guy.
I mean, everyone has their different experiences with people on set. So,
Mm.
I could only speak for my personal interactions with people. And it's interesting too, because like, you know, it's interesting like meeting all of these people in real life and interacting with them, because even if you interact with them on a and have a good experience, you could theoretically interact with the same person on set like a week later and they be like grumpy or in a bad mood, whatever. So
Sure.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I always just try to like take each individual thing as is. And I'm like, I try not to judge anyone, especially because I'm in this world too. And I'm like, I
Mm.
get it. There have been so many days where I show up to set and I'm just like not feeling it,
Yeah.
but I have to be there, So I'm like, there are some days where I'm just like, if you try to talk to me, I will be so curt, be like, yep. I'll be like, have my face on my phone, like, yep, great. Uh-huh. And, like, come on, like, get the hint. I don't want to talk right now. So, I just am always lucky when I actually have good experiences with people. Cause even if like it's just tough to judge someone too while they're at work. Like, even
Of
if like someone's
course.
rude to you or weird to you, they may be nice to someone else on the same day. I mean, that's how it is honestly at any job, but it's just you get more of a rep with this line of work than you would if the exact same dynamic happened and at a water cooler at an office job. It just
That's a
stays more
really
internal.
That's a really fascinating point. I think a lot of people don't think about it. Like it is work. Like it's one of the
Yeah.
coolest and probably most entertaining jobs in the world because you're making pretend for a living. Like you get to do what you did as kids, but it is a job. Like, and I think a lot of people forget about that. And, if someone got grumpy at someone in an office job, as you said, like no one would bat an eye. They'd be like, oh, maybe ease up a little bit, but you wouldn't be like, oh, well, that was, you would never get grumpy at someone in an office. Like that's what happens. Like, so,
Right. I mean, that's just like office work culture.
mm,
Like everyone is stuck with each other day in and day out, probably in more hours than they get to spend with their own family at home or whatever,
mm,
or even just by themselves. So, yeah, people get aggravated, agitated, and it's the same way on set. And honestly, even more so because when people work 9 to 5 jobs, they may have a 10 to 12 hour day, but you're not going to have a 16-hour day.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
chances are you won't be pulling multiple overnights sometimes unless you're like a nurse or something, and you've got a schedule that is really crazy, but like the vast majority of jobs are a bit more stable in that way with their schedule. So it's like
Absolutely.
with a production job, it can change on a dime, and it can even change the day of, where they have a projected hard out 12-hour day, or even a shorter one potentially, and then you never know, something happens. What I mean, it's just it, on set, it's a combination of like extreme planning and loose cannon at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you just kind of
And
have to roll with the punches and the flow of it. But it's like there's so much pressure on you, especially as main talent and main crew, like directors and ADs and cinematographers, stuff like that, where I mean, you're clocking in same thing as you would in an office or wherever with coworkers, except, especially if you're like main talent or whatever, you've got a camera literally on you,
yeah.
or you're the guy holding the camera on someone. So it's like people can't just be on 24/7, and you're expected to be on 24/7, especially if you're an actor. Like that's your job, is to be on, but it is exhausting.
Absolutely.
So
I remember, and I don't want to get too political, trying to steer too far away from things, but I remember when Ezra Miller was in the news quite a bit a couple of years ago, and was in quite a bit of trouble, and the media and the audience and everyone came after them so hard, like and Ezra was obviously going through some problems at the time, but everyone was tearing Ezra apart every chance. Like, there was no one sticking up for Ezra. And I remember
mhm.
thinking, I was like, you know what? Like, clearly this person's going through some trouble right now. They've made some bad decisions. But most of us, when we have, you know, a bad day or a mental breakdown or whatever the case was, we're not doing it in front of the entire world. And I just
Yes.
felt like, you know what? Like, I can't condone the behavior, but it seems like there was a lot more going on there. And most of us don't have to do that with a camera in our face or, social media commenting on every move we make. And I remember just feeling it's like, man, like that must be so tough. And it sounds like since then they've got some help, and they're trying to write their path, and I hope they are, and I hope they're better, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so you talking about the experience of talent, like even just there's a camera in your face doing your job, like no one thinks about that. Like even I, who's watched thousands of movies, when you said it, I'm like, oh, of course. Like I wouldn't necessarily think about it like that. But
Well,
I tend to,
because there's that fourth wall that you're not
mm,
supposed to break unless you're intentionally doing it as a film technique as the filmmaker. But
yeah,
there's
for
always
sure.
supposed to be this like curtain. It's like looking under the showbiz curtain at Chuck E. Cheese, and then you see all the animatronics with the
Yeah,
power down. No one wants to see that.
yeah,
That's like the sausage being made in the hot dog factory.
yeah,
You just want the end product. You don't want
yeah,
all the messiness that goes with the reality of the people who involved, who have their own lives and have to come to work and make something to entertain the world. Um, so yeah, I know that Anthony Mackie has had a little hard time on social media recently with trying to defend like being the new Captain America, and that's been hard for him. But at least for me personally, he was great on set. Like
mm,
it was a week we worked on the White House stuff that I was in, and just long, long days, and
yeah,
just so much back and forth between the different sides of the room, having to because we were in such a small space in that East Room scene, and even in the front entrance scene of the White House, which this was all shot on Tyler Perry's studio lot because he has an actual White House built on the
Ah,
lot.
cool.
Yeah, and it's like a whole exterior White House. So it's really cool.
Mm.
And the rooms are built up inside too. So he uses it for a lot of his shows and movies and then rents it out to whoever needs a White House shooting in Atlanta.
I'll
So
tell you what, like it's something you can bring that most people don't have. It's like you're filling a void. It's a need there, and he's got yeah, that's amazing. I
yeah,
yeah.
it's like it's really tough because both of those rooms are not big and you've got all these background and actor crew and the equipment. Like the
Mm,
equipment takes up so much space and then when you're in doing a scene that has so much camera coverage, like the White House scene that we did, because also too, with literally within the context of the movie, they use the camera footage from the White House as part of like the story, figuring out who the leader is and everything and what's going on, like in the
yeah.
movie. So they refer back to taped camera footage, which felt like very like metatextual to me
Yep.
because I'm like watching camera footage in the movie of the movie that I was there when they were filming me there. So it's like I'm watching myself through several different like lenses of reality.
It must have
And
been a
it
very
was
Truman Show moment for you.
it
Just kind of yeah.
was. It was because it's weird enough to like see something that you're working on the screen and you're like, "Oh my god, that's a scene we worked on." But then when the movie has video recorded footage in the movie of the scene you were in and is playing it back and forth in the movie and they're like analyzing the footage trying to, see what happened like in the scene. I'm like, "Oh my god." Like it something cool is it's the first time I've seen myself fast forwarded and rewound in a movie because I'm in the camera footage both in the entrance of the White House and inside the conference room, which they show recorded footage of in the movie, and they rewind it and fast forward it, like as they're looking over all the details of it. And so I'm in there and I'm seeing myself being rewound and fast forward, and I'm like, oh my god, that is so cool! Like it's a milestone that as an actor you don't necessarily think about. Like everyone thinks, "Oh, I want an Oscar one day," or
Mm,
you have these like big goals and achievements, but then there are little things that you don't necessarily think about until they happen. And you're like, "Oh
mm.
wow, that's the first time I've been fast forwarded or rewound on a screen. Like how cool is that?" Like I would have never thought about an achievement or what. I don't even know if you got an achievement, but I mean, I don't know. It's certainly a box that is checked off that I didn't even know was a box until I checked it off, you know?
What I'm hearing, Nadia, is you're all over this film, and still somehow I missed you. So I got to open my eyes because
I will say when you see me, you will laugh because my goofy ass grinning face is all up in that conference room scene, especially because I am just seated right behind Captain America, but I was like almost off the screen since he's like the center of a lot of the shots. I am on
mm,
the very like right side, his left. So
mhm.
there were times when the camera was on him and I was like, ooh, let me lean over as much as I can in this chair without falling out of it to make sure I'm in the shot. So you could see me. I'm like totally like coming in the screen totally diagonally because I'm like leaned so far over. But there are a lot of shots they did of panning across the room, getting our reactions because we're all playing. It's like um a meeting of all these different countries coming in to talk about adamantium. So I was
Mm,
actually a French aide and I was with like the French delegates or whatever. So we're on our little groups, but I was like lucky enough to even be placed in Captain America's zone because you like like control over where you're placed in a scene.
oh
Like
yeah.
the AD or the PAs, like you're put there according to how you look or the group you're in with according to the characters, or even sometimes as much as what you're wearing. They don't want two people in blue next to each other, so they'll move
Yep.
someone. So it was just luck of the draw that I got chosen to like sit where I even sat, even in the line of sight. So I was like, oh, thank God, But yeah, it was, Anthony Mackie was really great because it was just, doing that scene, the camera set up since it was a circular room and Harrison Ford's in the middle as the president talking. And so they're having to get coverage of the entire room. It was just a lot of days of them having to move all that equipment back and forth between the
Yep.
different sides of the room. Now to get this side, and to get this side. And then when we did the entrance to the White House stuff, I mean, It was, I think we did two overnights that week.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. I'm telling you, I've talked probably way too long already about this one thing. I could do a whole podcast about my experience in Captain
No,
America,
this
but
is fascinating to me, and this is like so relevant. Like this flick is out there right now, and yeah, like because I know a little bit about making movies, not too much, of course, but you often hear like the tedious ones, the ones that take the most time are the action shots. Like I imagine, Harrison Ford hulking out, in front of the White House, that probably took a few days to organize. But the idea of it just people walking and talking at night, like the fact you're doing it a couple of night shoots, I wouldn't have expected that. I'd be like, oh, that might have been a day, but you're saying it was a few nights, so wow.
no, yeah, and there was no action in that opening of the White House scene. They're literally just coming in from outside the White House. There's a bunch of photographers and red carpet people, which I feel so bad for everyone who played media in that scene because for all those the two long overnights, and I mean, I say there were two overnights, but I'm trying to remember how it broke down. Like, how many nights of that week did we shoot in the conference room scene, and how much did we shoot doing that White House entrance? But I
Mm,
am pretty sure both overnights we did was for the White House entrance because I think they come in at night, so it
yeah,
had to be shot at night. Um, like in the movie, they come at like their White House party or whatever conference is a night thing.
yeah.
So I think that is the case, and so it was in April, I believe, when we shot that scene, and so um it ended up actually being quite cold.
I was going to say
And
that I was like April, but April's not too bad. But then I remember the different different hemispheres. For us, April, we're going to autumn. It's not too bad. It's still pretty warm. But yeah, April in the States, especially if it's out that way, pretty cold, I imagine.
I mean, yeah, and weather's crazy. I mean, even now in February, it's like almost 70 degrees and then 18 degrees in the same week. So
Yeah,
honestly, Southern Atlanta weather is just like not okay. It needs a wellness check. So I you can never depend on it or rely on it to be any kind of weather on any month. Like it's going to do what it's going to do. But I do remember it being cold because those poor media reporter people, all the BG playing it, they were outside the whole time. And I mean, it was like a lot, even just to be by the front door inside the building, because that's where I was standing. And I was in a little Ralph Lauren like dress suit. So I had exposed legs and exposed arms, and I was just like dying. So I couldn't imagine what it was like for the people who were outside for 14 plus hours,
yeah,
for at least two nights in a row. And these overnight shoots, like, it's tough because there's not an industry standard for what an overnight actually is.
yeah,
So they get real fast and loose with what overnight is on a lot of these like productions. Um, because usually you're coming in a little bit before sundown. I mean, enough before sundown to get prepped and be ready. But then, like, sometimes an overnight can be, I mean, to me, a definition of an overnight should be past midnight. Because
yep.
to me, that is literally an overnight. When you hit midnight, that's overnight. You're into the
Yes,
next day by
I would
definition.
agree with that. I think most people would agree with that. That's overnight. Yeah.
Not so much because I
Oh,
have
okay.
worked jobs where I have gotten out at 4:30 in the morning and that was not considered an overnight. And
Interesting.
I'm like, how? When you say something something in the morning to describe the hour, 4:30 in the morning, it's not 4:30 at night. It's in the morning of the next day, like you and an overnight dog. Like,
Yeah.
call it what it is. This was a true overnight, which they did at least give us a heads up about before. Because a lot of productions will book you, not say it's an overnight, claim it's not an overnight, and be like, guys, it's not, and even go as far to assure people it's not an overnight. So when you accept the job, you're thinking, I'll get out midnight or a little maybe earlier. And then it gets often pushed that between 1 and 3 is almost what people consider a regular overnight. You could still get out at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Mm.
and that is not like a true overnight. Um,
That's I mean, look,
oh,
Hollywood is
it's tough.
insane. Like I've heard about movie maths and I've heard about how like if you don't break a certain number, like I know them like Miramax is a company in particular who would like constantly be getting sued because like the money didn't make a movie, but it grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. Like the Hollywood, their math is very strange. Their hours are strange. Their money is strange. It's very bizarre. Thank goodness they're putting out quality products for
100%.
us. So
Oh my, no, you're absolutely right. Like movie math is not actual mathematics by like a mathematician's like general standards. Like it is
yeah,
this whole other category of math that exists in its own realm. Like so yeah, like the two overnights that we did do were actually till sun up the next morning. So we're
yeah.
talking 6:37 in the morning.
Wow.
And so, yeah, those reporters were out there all night in the cold, holding cameras, which are heavy.
Yeah,
Um, also, and like still cameras and video cameras. Like there were reporters out there holding those actual big ass cameras that you have to put on your shoulder because they're so big.
yeah.
Like they're having to hold on to that all night for 14 hours or 15. I mean, I think one of the overnights might have even been a 16-hour one. Like I don't remember, but oh my god, it was brutal. And like they were also on bleachers because they were like stacked to get, I guess, a view of you know the red carpet event. Like they had it set up so the media was on bleacher stacked. And so
Yep.
they didn't even have a place to sit. They were
Oh.
just and the bleachers apparently weren't even like super sturdy, so they couldn't really like lean on it. Like they just were sitting on the cold metal outside with not even really anything to put their backs on. And I felt as rough as it was for the rest of us inside. I was like, ooh, y'all gonna have PTSD after this one. Like, which honestly, that set did give me PTSD. Like, again, I'm not trying to talk about this all day, but like that was one of the worst catering experiences of my life was
Oh
on
wow,
casting there.
you would think Disney, they'd be covering you with some decent food. Maybe Anthony Mackie gets some good food. Maybe I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. They good. The crew is good. And the crew also gets a snack every 4 hours. They get a hot snack.
Yep.
So they are well fed. But the background, like it was so rough that we almost like unionized and had like a revolt. Like,
Wow.
oh yeah, it was getting mutinous for sure. Um and not all the production days were like that because I worked with other people before that who talked about it being like normal. But for some reason, for the scene we worked on, it was not. And I mean, it was just like food that had been sitting out for hours that were prepackaged. It wasn't enough. The portions were not even enough for a child. Like, so it was just like running out of food every day, cold
Oh,
food. Like, some
yeah.
food was like reused clearly from the day before and like repurposed into some weird thrown together thing. There was one point they had a mystery meat, which was truly mysterious. Like, no one could identify what it was. It was gray. And we were like, what the fuck? And like people were taking pictures of the food situation and sending it to the casting company and being like, yo, this is not okay over here. And so, yeah, by the last day we shot on the seventh day or whatever, they actually had proper catering with the hot buffet line being served to you like you're a human being. But we were like, too little, too late, y'all. Thanks a lot. Like, day 7, really? Like, we've been going through all the trenches like the 6 other days, and this is now finally. It's like this is freaking Marvel Disney. They own like a third of the world. Like,
That's true.
Disney does between
Mm,
Nestle and all the subsidiaries and everything. Like, it was just mind blowing that it like such a high budgeted production would do that.
yeah.
There was one point, I mean, we were just so irritable because we were starved, we were cold. Like even inside that conference room, they had so much wind blowing on us because to diffuse the light, they had to put actually a lot of fog in the room.
Yep.
And so it was a lot of fake fog. And so they had to have the fans running on and off in between takes to, keep it ventilated. But it was like for 14 plus hours, I just have one of those big box fans, like industrial fans pointed right at me. And I'm like in the little dress and I'm like, oh, and wind on it personally, wind is my least favorite, like weather element. It just makes everything worse. Like a
Yep.
breeze on a hot day, perfect. But when it gets when it evolves into wind, it just fucks everything up. It
Yep.
just wind is the worst. So me being like with a fan pointed right at me for a whole week, I was like, this is my hell.
Yeah, that
But it was nice to get the compliment from Anthony Mackie because I did get to talk to him a little bit offset while we were in holding, hanging out while they were production and crew were getting this shot set up, and in between time where we're just chilling, like we're supposed to stay in our little holding area, but we also were able to kind of walk around the White House a little bit to stretch our legs, get outside. And Anthony Mackie would just sit on the back of a production truck, like right pretty much in our area. And he'd just be sitting on his phone, and he'd smoke cigars, just be chilling there, smoking a cigar. And then there's also a big kind of pond that Tyler Perry has on his set. He actually has several ponds and lakes on his property, on his studios, but there's one that's right by the White House. So at one point during the week, Anthony Mackie brought his fishing pole and was fishing. And at one point, I wish I could have taken a picture, but we actually had our phones taped because a lot of Marvel productions,
oh yeah.
comic book movies in general, they got the phones on lockdown. Like
Oh yeah. You
sometimes,
see the leaks. I remember when Deadpool was shooting in the UK and like they're just shooting in a quarry, just literally just a random quarry out in the open, and that's when all those like character leaks started coming out. So yeah, I
oh
imagine
yeah,
Marvel's
I
got it
mean,
locked down pretty tight.
like in different ones are kind of different. Like it's not across the board. Like Agatha just put tape. Like Agatha and Superman just put tape over the phones.
Oh,
But
okay.
Thunderbolts and Captain America, you had to surrender your phone, and they put it in a locked pouch, and you could only have it unlocked maybe during lunch if you're lucky, and then stand in a like sometimes if they'd have like a person walking around with the device that unlocks the pouches, but you couldn't even find them half the times because they're running
Mm,
around doing their actual job. Like they
yep.
weren't just the pouch unlock guy.
Yep.
They were like actually a PA or something who actually had a whole other set of things they had to be working on. So it was like if you weren't filming at the moment and you wanted to be on your phone, you had to like try to find that guy during then or during lunch, get him to unlock your pouch, and then you couldn't walk away with the phone. You had to stand there in front of the guy in this
Yeah.
little blocked off little area, or not blocked off, but like mentally blocked off. They were like, don't leave this little area if you're going to be on your phone because they want to watch you,
Yep.
make sure you're not like sneaking off. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I wish I could have taken a picture, but it was really funny. Like Anthony Mackie standing there with his fishing pole, and he's standing there like holding it, and he's got a cigar hanging out his mouth. Like I was like, that is a cool image, like Captain America, like when he's off the clock. But yeah, it was cool. Like at one point, I think this would might have been the first night we shot the scene in the entrance hall, which might have been, I think, the first overnight. Um, so that night was just, like I said, just so extra rough. And he did a really good job of trying to keep like the energy up. He would
Nice.
just always be making jokes, being like, "All right, guys, let's go." I mean, though to the point where I will say it felt like, okay, I appreciate this energy because we were all dead right now and we do need it, but at the same time, like, okay, let's get to filming. Like, I
Yeah.
understand you're making jokes right now, and we were all like, okay, appreciate the jokes, but also let's just get the scene going.
Yeah.
So it's tough because he's trying to, he's trying to be like an MC. He's trying to, I mean, and it's all on his shoulders. So it's like, he wants it to be good, maybe even more than a lot of the people working on the film, frankly. Because a lot of I mean, not to speak for all the crew, but for some of the crew, this is just a job.
Yeah,
Not
for
to say they
sure.
don't love film and filmmaking, but like some people working in the industry are more passionate than others. And some see
Absolutely.
it,
Yeah.
so like for him, it's just a lot was riding on the line personally. So he was just trying to keep it up. And there was one point, like, like, we were literally draped on the marble floor on the staircase inside that White House at like 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we're like half asleep while they are like setting up another shot. And at one point, I was like joking, I was like, how many more angles can we get of this scene? Like, we have literally, and that might have been actually the second overnight, because I think the first overnight when Anthony Mackie complimented my hair, we were like, I don't know when it was, but we were just so tired. And at one point, like, I heard like nice hair or something like that. And I turned around and he was right behind me looking at me. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, thanks. But like he was just trying to, I think, just be really nice. And
Mm.
like, oh my God, that first night, there was actually a woman, a background woman who fainted. She
Oh
passed
wow.
out because we'd been standing there so long. And I guess she locked her knees. And she might have been a policeman or military. So she had all of that gear on, this heavy.
Yeah.
And it was weird because it was cold outside, but then it would get very like musty and like the air was like thick and everything inside between all the like fake smoke from the fog trying to defuse the lights. And then just we were a lot of people and a lot of machinery and equipment all in one small space.
Yep.
And so it was just, very kind of suffocating in there at times. And so I think, yeah, she just fell out. And thank God someone was behind her and she fell backwards
Yep.
because, or you know what? I take that. Someone was in front of her. She fell forwards because she did hit her mouth.
Oh wow.
She did
Okay.
make contact with the marble floor of the White House because
Ooh.
she had a busted lip. And I felt so bad for her because it was literally in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Like every main cast member, the whole crew, all of us BG, like I know she was so embarrassed when she like came to because she was like out for a second. They had to like kind of try to get her back to consciousness.
And
And
there's
I
nothing to
just
be ashamed about there. Like,
no,
that's
not
happens
at
to
all.
everyone. I'm sure Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford were like, oh, what an unprofessional. I'm sure that wasn't them at all. Like,
No, but
yeah,
I
do you know what I mean?
know you can't help but feel embarrassed.
Mm.
And it's even when there's nothing to be embarrassed of. It's like I just fainted in front of 300 or however many people. You know what I mean?
I think
It's
what's
like,
more upsetting is there was an Avenger there and no one went to go save her. Like, he's got the wings.
well,
He could have.
yeah, she was actually really the trooper at the end because I think that both of our overnights were on Fridays, which they generally typically do overnights on Fridays,
Yep.
which it's like I get because it's the end of the week and then they kind of generally have Saturday, no one's filming, so you can kind of have more of a longer shoot day because you're not shooting the next
There's
day
that Hollywood
typically.
math again. Yep.
There you go. Exactly. And so, yeah, that happened the first night. And then she ended up coming back that next Monday and she had a bruised lip and everything. And I was like, man, if I was her, I don't know if I would have had it in me to show back up. Like, again, I don't know if I would have been too embarrassed or like just felt weird. She showed right back up. We like clapped for her. We were like, hell yeah, girl, because that's another thing too, is when you like, not all backgrounders are the same in terms of their devotion to it, the professionalism, them wanting to do it. Like some people do it very wishy washy and they might do it once or twice. It's not their job, like careers. So you get a lot of people that do this and you may work with them once and never see them again.
Yeah, sure.
So, you never know how serious or dedicated people are to what they're doing. She could have just been there and been like, I want to be in a Marvel movie. But I guess whatever her reasoning was for being in it was enough to bring her right back on Monday. Because we thought at the very least she would maybe sit out due to an injury,
Yeah.
just for like her own well-being to like recuperate. But she was right back at it. So
That's
yeah,
awesome, man. That's
it
great.
was
Like that.
awesome.
Mm.
And it was cool because like everyone on set genuinely stopped what they were doing and like we made sure she was okay. But then also when she returned, we were like, yeah, So I mean, it was good vibes, but
Yeah.
it was also very trying. Like that second overnight, they literally paid us an extra $100 as please come back money because so
Yeah.
many people did not come back or want to come back
Yeah,
after
right,
the first
right.
over. So in order to have continuity, because like if people don't show up and they've already been established, that fucks everything.
Yeah,
So
for
it was
sure.
a very continuity heavy scene. Like you were booked for all 7 days, and like you're not supposed to change that, once you're locked in. So a lot of people, because of the conditions, and were like, fuck this. I'm not coming back after that first
Yeah, yeah,
overnight.
wow.
So yeah, it was a lot, but it was a lot of fun too. I met so many people on that shoot. Backgrounders and crew. A lot of the crew, like the AD on that shoot, actually ended up being the first AD on Saturday night.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, got to work with her and seeing a bunch of the PA people again. It's fun. It's like the more you're in the game, the more familiar with the players you get.
Yeah.
And so it's just, yeah, it was a crazy experience, but also a good one. So I'm really glad that it's finally out, because in 2023, that just seems like forever ago now. Like so much has happened, like between the strikes and everything
Yeah,
that
of
went on. Like,
course.
oh my God, that just seems like it was so long ago. So it's finally out after those reshoots too. Like, and we were afraid with the reshoots. We were like, oh my God, if we did all of that week and that scene ain't in the movie,
Yeah, it's a pretty
we're like, that's
pivotal
gonna be
scene. It needs. Like, I can't imagine that film without that scene. So thank goodness you were pretty safe there.
I
But
know. I was thinking in the context of the scene, I was like, I'm not sure how they can like not have this in the movie. So I was like, this seems like it would be very confusing if it's not.
yeah, yeah, that would have been insane because COVID only. I mean, like, look, let's not kid ourselves. COVID is still around, but you had the lockdowns for a couple of years, which shut down Hollywood, and then you're like, we're back, and they're like, it's a strike, which is very important. Like the strike was was much needed and has helped to get a lot of rights to actors and deservedly so. But yeah, Hollywood definitely was on a disrupted timeline for a little bit, so it's nice to know that things are kind of on their way back. So.
Thank God. I mean,
Mm,
honestly, it was really, really rough. And like the year that I really made this my full time job was the same year the strike happened. So I was like,
mm.
that's great. That's good timing right there. You
The
know,
universe doesn't often send messages, Nadia, but when it does,
they're like, bitch, who do you think you are? You ain't going to be doing this job. No, it
uh,
was rough, but one of my earlier great experiences was Insidious 5, to bring it all the way damn back to that.
that's right. We were talking about Insidious 5.
I
So,
know. I got
I'm,
way
I'm
off
so glad
there.
you spoke about Captain America, though. I think it's really important. Like, it's such an opportunity, like, just for me as the host to be able to, like, hear that story, but also for the audience. Like, these are the stories you don't hear. And I don't listen to that and be like, oh my goodness, like, never work at Disney. I'm like, no, no, work at Disney. Just be mindful. If you are a background actor, you might faint and you might get a bad meal. But it
Yeah,
sounds like
so
most of
bring your
all, it
own
was,
food on set.
yeah. Do what
Yeah, for
Robert Downey
sure.
Jr. did on Avengers. Sneak some blueberries in, you'll be fine. Um, so
Yeah, the
yes,
code
Insidious.
name.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's funny. The code name for that is was Rochelle for Captain America, and Oops All
Yes.
Berries was for Thunderbolts. So,
Nice.
but yeah, with Insidious, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the code name for that, but yeah, it just Patrick Wilson was amazing. I'm lucky I got cast because, like I said, the casting call was originally not something I really was like qualifying for, but
Yep.
I was like, you know what? I got the silver hair. Fuck it. Like, I'm just gonna do some makeup on my face to like make me a little like for my submission photo. I just kind of made myself like try to make myself look older and a little rougher, like more ghoulish, you know?
Hmm.
And I was like, I'll just go ahead and submit. Like, I won't like age myself out either way when it comes to submitting for roles that are younger or older than I am. I'm like, you know what? I'll submit because hey, you can't was it win the lotto if you don't buy a ticket or whatever. So
That's it. You like, yeah, exactly. What is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think you got to take that swing,
exactly.
like, because they think they want that person between 40 and 60, but they don't know what they want until they see it. You hear all the time about how someone was cast at the last minute or was like, this was we've seen everyone who'd done the same thing 100 times over, and then we saw someone who wasn't what we wanted and was exactly what we needed. Like, it's so interesting. We're constantly, Hollywood's telling us what they think they want, but it's never what they want. It's actually the opposite of what they want generally. So,
Well, and that's kind of how it ended up actually working out for me getting cast, as
mm,
I had the casting company reply back to me and be like, hey, um, I don't remember if they said anything about the age or not, or maybe that they had already cast the ghouls or something like that. But they were like, we would actually love to have you come on as like a nurse tech or whatever,
yeah,
which was originally not even part of the scene or script that they were going to do was have nurse tech. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if they saw me and they were like, you know what? Let's have her in this and make her a nurse. Like, I don't know what their thought process was, but I know I got cast for something for that I did not submit for. So you never know. Like, just that's what like, I had to have other actor friends I've talked to, like, being like, oh, I don't know if I should submit for this. I don't know if I fit. I'm like, just submit. Like, it costs you nothing to submit, it is free.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then you could get a job from it. Like, let them see you. You never know. Like, you could change someone's mind, even if they had chosen someone else. Like, you have to put yourself out there and let them make those decisions. You don't you like disqualify or X yourself out of the game, like the running, yourself. Let them make you do that for you. So,
Absolutely. Well, I think like the most famous version that I can think of, I think I've told the story on the podcast before, but it's one of my favorite casting stories of all time, is that Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, auditioned for Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. He went in, which would be a very different movie, and he
oh
didn't
my
get it.
God.
He didn't get it, and like instead of kind of being disappointed, he was like, I got this friend of mine, Mark Hamill. I'm going to tell him about this audition. I reckon he should go for it. And neither of them what they were looking for at the time, but because they were friends, Mark Hamill, who hadn't even heard of the Star Wars audition, like went along, and then the rest is history. It's just like he was neither of them were
Wow.
what they were looking for, but just because they were friends, like they changed the course of science fiction forever, which is kind of fun. So yeah.
That's amazing. See, I love that. And like, to speak a little bit to that point, like something I really love about at least the like Georgia film community. I can't really speak for the LA one too much because I did more behind the scenes stuff as opposed
Mm,
to on camera stuff when I lived there. And then also things change, so I can't even speak for it now because I haven't lived there in so long at this point. But like at least here, the community between like the performers is for like pretty all around very positive and supportive.
oh, that's great.
Like really good vibes. Like it's funny, like when I saw Maxine last year and she does Mia Goth's character, she does her audition and then she
Mm,
walks out and you got all the other actresses lined up to go in audition after her. And she's like, all y'all bitches better pack up and go home because I nailed that shit. Like she's trying
wow,
to
that
like
was a good Mia Gotha's magazine. That was pretty good. You should have auditioned for that role. Um,
like she's like trying to psych them out, so
mm,
they don't get it, and she does, and that's just not a thing. Like the whole neon demon situation with the cutthroat competition, dog eat dog, like
mm,
it's not like that here. Like people lift each other up. Like I'm in a group on Facebook and Instagram where we post jobs for each other. Like anything that comes out, we'll share it with the group so everyone has a chance to see it and apply. Or like if there's
nice.
yeah, if there's a casting call for someone specific that we don't qualify for, but we know someone else could, we'll send it to them and be like, oh my God, here's this. I don't know if you saw it. You should apply to this. Um, and when people get jobs, we celebrate them.
Yeah.
We're happy for them. We're proud for them because I guess, and again, it's weird. LA, for as big of a city as it is actually quite a small world. But
Yes.
to that point, then Atlanta is even smaller. So,
Mm,
so it's like everyone really, once you start working in it enough, you really start to build a friendship and community and kinship with the people you work with. Or at least I have. Again, I can't speak for everybody, but this is how I feel. And so,
I mean, I've been
you know,
talking to you for almost 2 hours now, Nadia, and I can't imagine someone not being your friend. Like you're very easy to talk to.
but it's just nice. It doesn't feel like that when you think of Hollywood and
Mm,
acting, you think of just this brutal competition where people are trying to tear each other down and you're walking on the backs of others to make it climb the ladder to the top. And it's just not like that here.
yeah,
And
I'm sure there's some of it somewhere. I'm sure like for every 10 wonderful actors, there's probably one person in there who probably isn't particularly nice. But it does seem to be changing. It does seem like you don't hear either that or they're getting really good at covering it up. But other stuff
I
comes out
mean,
of Hollywood all the time, so I don't think it's a cover up. I think with these new generations of filmmakers and actors, there's so much more focus on community and storytelling, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. It does seem to be becoming a nicer place, which is really good.
yeah, so yeah, people were really happy for me when I got the Insidious thing, and
Mm,
like I got to go, and it was a 2-day additional. I don't know if it was reshoots or additional shooting. It may
mm,
have been added on. I think maybe additional shooting instead of reshoots. I don't remember, but it was just it was at a studio I hadn't been to before, so that was cool going there for the first time. Because you never know too where you're going to go for a job with this job. Like you could
yeah.
be at a studio or you could be on location. So
Mm.
you're kind of bopping around all over the place.
And Marvel does shoot a lot in Australia, so like be thankful though. Like, hey, Atlanta, you can stay in Atlanta. Like they did a couple of the Thor films out here, and they've done a couple other ones out here as well. So you could have been on a 30-hour plane ride. So at least you didn't have that.
Well, I did have Tyler Perry once take me all the way to Chattanooga at 3:30 in the morning. So to
Wow.
film. Yeah. Oh my God. I worked on what was it? The 688.
Okay.
Me and a bunch of other people worked on that, and we were booked for it, and we thought that we would just be shooting at a studio. Um, Absolutely not. We got a call from the casting company being like, hey, so, and this was like a couple days before our scene was supposed to go on. So it wasn't like, I mean, it was ahead of time prep, which you don't always get. So I do appreciate they did give us a heads up as opposed to just us showing up and being like, we're going out of state today to film, being like, huh? But even like, even with the advance notice, it was still such a shock. Like, we doing this for real? Like, they were like,
Mm.
yeah, so just to let you know, call time is gonna be 3:30 in the morning on Monday. And I was like, it's like, oh, okay. Cause like to this day, that's the earliest call time I've had.
Yeah.
Like, and a call time of 6 in the morning honestly sucks because you gotta wake up early enough to get ready. And it's not, again, it's not like getting ready at a lot of normal jobs where you might just have your outfit that you get for the day. You have to like really bring a bunch of shit with you. Cause most movies you provide your own wardrobe
Yeah, for
unless it is
sure.
something specific. In this case, I didn't have to, thank God, because the 6888 is a period piece. But then to that effect, getting dressed and all the prep we had to do before filming took forever. Because talk about cattle calls, they had cattle calls on that shoot that was like 300 plus people, and everyone is in period specific hair, makeup, clothing. And the clothing was so period specific for several things that I've done, this one included, that they even had us in period like appropriate undergarments.
I
Like
knew you were
I
gonna
am
say that. As you
wearing,
started to say, I'm like, she's gonna say undergarments. Yeah.
yes. Oh my God. So like I am wearing a bra and like some Spanx from like the 1930s or whenever the 6888 takes place. And I'm like, oh my God, why? Like no one, hopefully no one's seeing this. Is the like the the impression of it through the clothes, are we really going to be seeing through all the layers of clothes I'm wearing? Like, and I even had shoes that I swear to God were from the 1930s because they were like disintegrating literally. I actually had to get them fixed because I was like, guys, the heel is like uneven, because I was looking at it, I was like, it is like crumbling as I'm standing on this. I cannot walk on this. So yeah, he took us all the way to Chattanooga, 3:30 in the morning. We had to show up on a bus. Thank God, like I said, since it was costume, I didn't have to haul stuff with me, but I still had to haul my bag of things I need for the day. Like,
Yeah.
like battery pack charger, water, like, blanket, what anything I'm gonna need for myself for basically you pack for like a day trip every time you go on set. You have to bring your essential like set bag full of your
Yeah.
shit that you're gonna need that has nothing to do with production. It is all your personal stuff that you need just to be there for 12 plus hours.
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
knew I was going out of state, so I had to have an extra thing packed. And so we get on this bus, and I mean, it is like a 2 hour drive and probably even longer because we're on a bus and can't go as fast as you can driving in a car. So we are on like a 2 hour, however long, bus ride to Chattanooga, no stops, and there's not a bathroom on the bus. So that is how we began and ended our day. And the shoot day was already 14 hours, not including the travel time.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like,
Oh wow.
Tyler, why? Why'd you do it to us, Tyler? Like we went to shoot at a train station, and I guess he just loved the look of it, or I don't know if it was the only one that was available or what, but I'm like, bro, we have got trains all in Georgia. Atlanta is the city within the trains. Like there's so many trains. This was the you're telling us you had to take us all the way to Chattanooga for the like to go shoot at this one train place. Why? So yeah, nothing for as rough as call times were, for other stuff, that still takes the cake. And as rough as Captain America was with the overnights, that still definitely takes the cake. So yeah, and luckily Insidious was actually pretty chill. I got to be an MRI tech. And so you only kind of see me. I'm kind of obscured. You really it's funny, people joke about my arm in Saturday Night, the movie, because since I'm the arts prop girl on that, you see sometimes more of my limbs than like you see my face because I am running in and out off the screen so much, like placing things and giving people things. Like I give Michael O'Donoghue the Wolverine book, and I give
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Lorne Michaels, the papers and for the Weekend Update, and I placed the telephone on the Weekend Update table. So it's like
Oh,
you
I
kind of
remember all
see.
of these scenes. So okay, so I have seen you in this movie. I
Yeah,
I said to you before we started that film is very special to me. So I have seen you in that movie then, but not your face.
yeah. So it's like that. The first kind of big thing that I was in. You see like my arm operating like the MRI computer machine in the next room while Patrick Wilson and the guy who plays the doctor who's performing the MRI, like they're in that little room together. So
Yeah.
I am like not in the room with the camera, but you can see me through the little window. So I was like, ooh. And that was really cool because it was Patrick Wilson's directorial debut. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
not only did I get to watch him for the first time as an actor, but I got to watch him as his first time directing as well. And so
That's very
that
cool.
yeah, and I'm trying to think to this day that might be the only thing I've worked on that and the actor, the lead talent has directed. I don't think I've worked on anything else where that's been the case. So that was a very unique experience and he was very very nice to everyone, very professional, very calm and collected. It was so cool to see him swap between putting himself in director shoes and then
Mm.
falling back into doing the character work as the actor in the scene, having to be very because the scene in Insidious, he goes into the MRI machine and then he has like a whole kind of little psychotic episode and sees like one of the ghouls that I auditioned, not like specifically, but one of the ghouls that I would have wanted to be um one of the ghouls got to like crawl up in the MRI machine, like towards his feet, up at him, and so he like was freaking out. So it was cool to see him like be very calm and collected as the director, but then 10 seconds later start freaking out on the MRI table, like
Yeah,
as
yeah.
a character who's vulnerable and going through a lot emotionally and psychologically. So that was really neat to see the juxtaposition of how someone can turn something on and off. And he would kept it was a very smooth production, good days. Crafty was good, I could tell you that. I'll tell you, I will remember a production if the food is very good or if it's very bad. It will make me remember you. And that one was a good one. I remember he had an ice cream truck that came. That was a good one. And he was just really nice and like kind of had a air of levity, kind of joking around a bit, but still kept a tight ship running. So it was just a great vibe.
Yeah, he
Um,
seems like a good dude. Like I feel like he's someone who's not in enough conversations. And I just think he just has a very quiet career. Like he's a wonderful career. He's been in so many massive things, but I just never really hear like unless you go into like the horror community, like I don't hear people talk about Patrick Wilson a lot, but he's just I think he's one of the greats, and we just gotta hopefully time will be a little bit more kinder to him so we can see more of him because I think he's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, like at the end of when we got wrapped on the second day, he actually and I'm trying to think like there's not really I mean other than Jason Reitman because we that was just a whole nother thing because we were like
yeah,
so up in that whole production. But other than Jason, like Patrick was the only director I could really think of who took time. Like I've been thanked before with the us BG have been thanked by a director before being like, thank you guys today, great job. Like when I worked on gosh, I remember like the working title name and now I'm trying to remember um oh, is it Paul Feig? Who did the movie with Aquafina and I'm like in the movie and I'm trying to remember the name, but it went through a name change because it was called Grand Theft Lotto and now it's
okay.
called
With
oh,
Aquafina, let me look it up because I know I'm pretty familiar with Aquafina's work. Um,
what was it? What was it? Jackpot. Jackpot.
I
Uh,
don't know that one. There you go. Okay, there
yeah,
you go.
yeah. Like when I actually got to work on Jackpot, I guess it was last year. See, I'm trying to remember. It might have been 2023 actually. Like I'm trying. It was one again, kind of one of the earlier things I worked on too.
Yep.
So I don't remember if it was shot maybe earlier in 2024 and came out the same year, or if it shot the year before. But like I actually got to end up working the very first day of production for that movie.
Oh, very
So
cool.
yeah, and I didn't know that going in. It just was like, oh, today's the first day of production. Cool. And so that was really neat because I don't know if he did this every day or if it was just because it was the first day of production, but Paul Feig, like after we got the last shot of the day, he came out from his little video village and he just waved to all of us because it was a very heavy background day. Like the first day of filming was actually, I think, like the first scene that's actually in the movie, which is a bunch of people chasing what's his name, Stifler from American Pie down the street. We're trying to kill him.
Oh wow. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So it was just it was a cattle call day, like,
Mm.
100, 200 people maybe. And it was just really cool because Paul Fake stepped out and he waved at us and he was like, I just want to thank you guys so much for this great day. Great day of first production. Thank you, great job. So that was really cool. Like, oftentimes when you work on a movie, you get wrapped, you don't see the director. They're off
Yeah, sure.
doing their own thing, which is fine. I mean, I've made a lot of movies before. I mean, I thank people in the movies I'm in because they're coming there for free, like
Yeah,
any
sure.
movie I've done, it has just been for the love of it. So, we're getting paid. They owe us no actual anything else after that. We're getting our money. That's the end of that business transaction. So when people take, lead talent sometimes does it too. They'll actually be nice enough and thoughtful enough to actually thank the background actors and be like, you guys were so great today. Thank you so much for working with us, blah, blah, blah. So I do pay attention when, creatives take the time out of their day and out,
Mm.
they're so much in their own thing, a day of production is just like nothing else is happening in the world pretty much. Like it is so tunnel vision. You were
Yeah, sure.
such in your own zone with not just creatively but technically and like the mechanics of making the movie work. There's so many moving parts everyday production. So when people take the time to like think background, that is just really going the extra mile for me. And you think that it would be something that should be like normal and commonplace, but it's not. I mean, again, does your
No.
boss come out and thank you every day at your job? No, it's like you
No.
clock out and bye tomorrow. So Patrick Wilson did do that. He came and it was just a couple of backgrounders. It was like me and I think two other nurses. So we were
That's
just
quite
hanging out.
special. That's quite cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very one on one. And the AD of that was like, hey guys, Patrick wants to come in and just thank you and everything. So he'd be in a minute. So I'm just like sitting in a conference room, which was our little holding area, like waiting for Patrick Wilson to walk in. And I'm like thinking in my head, like, oh my God, oh my God. Like, and this is again kind of earlier on in working on like bigger stuff projects. So at this point, I mean, trust me, there's still some people that like if I worked with, I'd be like, oh my God. It doesn't matter like how professional I try to be. Like that's, I just cannot help. There are some bucket list people that I'm like, I could die after working with them and I'd be happy, just
Yeah,
die
for
happy.
sure.
But yeah, with Patrick Wilson, I was just like, oh my God, he's so good, in The Watchmen and like just thinking of all the
Yes.
stuff he's worked in. And I actually there is an episode of Girls that's just him and Lena Dunham, like the whole episode. And I actually love him in that. Like they're just like little things that like, you know, obviously if you're working on Insidious, you're gonna like talk to him about Insidious. Like you're a fan of the movie, which actually I had not even seen any of the Insidiouses prior to working on it. So when I got
Yep.
booked for that, I was like, I've got a week to watch all the Insidious movies before I'm actually in one.
I haven't seen all of them, but they're pretty scary flicks, man. Like they still hold up. They're pretty terrifying. So that would have been a scary week for you.
Oh my God. Well, it was just funny because it was weird. Because the first Insidious was just kind of a big cultural event
Mm.
that I had known of the jump scare moment before actually seeing it. It's one of those weird things where pop culture kind of
Still works
catches up
though.
to
I
you.
knew about it as well. And it still got me. I was like, oh my
It
God.
still got me too. Because I mean, I didn't know exactly. I knew it was there, but I didn't know where in the movie it was there. I
Mm.
hadn't seen a clip of it, so I just knew there's supposed to be this big jump scare, but I didn't know when it was coming.
Mm.
So it definitely still got me. But oh my God, which by the way, like I didn't even know that what's her name? Plays his mom.
Oh, Lin
Let me
Shay?
uh wait,
No,
who am I
she's
thinking?
the psychic, sorry. Or the medium. Who plays his mum? Barbara Walters?
Oh,
No?
what's her
But
name? I'm like
why am I
so
struggling with films? Like
Hershey, Barbara Hershey, right?
I knew it was a Barbara, not Barbara Walters. What's going on with me?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
I know,
Barbara
I know.
Hershey,
I'm
yes.
like, my brain is like, who? Yeah. So I didn't even know she was in. I was like, damn, this movie's
Mm.
pretty good. So yeah, that it was just so crazy to like have an Insidious marathon and then go
Mm,
be in one and then see the man in person. Like I rewatched Watchmen as well. I had a week of Patrick Wilson.
nice.
So
That's a good week to have.
hey, let me tell you, it was. And
Mm.
I will say, like, even for whatever age he's in, because obviously Watchmen and all that was, a while ago now.
Yeah, it's 15 years
Like,
ago.
yeah, like 2009 or whatever. So I will say, however old he is, he looks great in person. Like I
He's
was like,
a.
hmm.
I'll be honest. I was watching Conjuring 2, and when he starts playing Elvis, I felt a little. I was like, oh my goodness, what a lovely man.
Hello, sir.
Like, hey, kiddo, I'm just on the phone, kiddo. My daughter is knocking on the door. She's kicking down. I've been in here for 2.5 hours, so I'm not surprised that she's kicking down the door.
I know. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. But yeah,
No, no, no,
needless to
no. She
say,
knows, and no mum's out there. It's all good. Like,
I know.
it's all good.
Like,
Um, I'm
yeah,
very
needless to
much.
say, when I saw him
Yes,
in
sorry.
person, I
Yes.
basically had all of these dreams of like trying to, be like, oh, I loved you and this, blah, blah, blah. And literally all I could get out of my mouth when he came up to shake my hand was, big fan, big fan. And that's all I could say. I was like, big fan twice. And he was probably like, okay, great. No,
Nah, he's probably
no,
seen that a lot. He's yeah,
oh my God, just dumbstruck. So,
yeah.
but he was fantastic. And then, yeah, I'll talk more about Saturday Night too to answer your question because that's one of the movies I'll talk about. So I didn't know if you had any other questions or whatever before we got into that.
No, I was just gonna say I'm quite mindful of time. We've probably got about 45 minutes left, so we
I
might just
know.
jump. Like, this has been great. I wasn't expecting. Normally, when I ask a question, I get three sentences, and you're like, "Let me give you 2 hours on Captain America." And I was like, "This is amazing." So,
Oh my God. Well, it's just tough because it came up and like it just came out and
oh,
like
I am not
I am
complaining, Nadia.
just so
Like, this is
excited about it.
amazing. Yeah, of course, this is great.
Like I
Um,
haven't talked to it about with anyone yet other than the people in town that I've worked with it yet, but I haven't even like seen it with like friends, family, like nobody. So I've had all this Captain America energy to be
yeah.
released and you unfortunately were in the line of sight.
Not at all.
So
No, no
I
unfortunate
just
about it.
unloaded
Like
all my Captain America
this is
bullshit.
cool, man. Like don't this is fascinating. This podcast most of the time is me asking people who watch movies what they like. I very rarely do I get to, yeah, as I said at the start, peek behind the curtain. So this is all, like, for me at least, this is fascinating. And that's who this podcast is for at the end of the day. Like, spoiler alert, it's all for me. So I've been just like, this is one of the few episodes where I've barely spoken, because I'm just like, please tell me all the amazing stories. Um, so no, like, this has been wonderful, but I do want to talk about some of your movies as well. So yeah, we'll rattle through them. What's number five on your list, Nadia?
Okay. So to preface this, when you
Mm.
asked me to come in with my top 5 favorite movies or whatever, I was like, this is like Sophie's choice. Like I could
Oh,
never.
it's a ridiculous question. It's unfair and it's
Oh
quite
my
cruel.
God.
So yeah.
But you know what? Some people operate very much on the list lifestyle. Like that
Mm,
is 100% how they view movies and how they like look at them and process them. And I have never been good about that. Like
mm,
it's like I live in a world where I'm like, I love all these things. I enjoy so much stuff about them. Like, how do you, especially when one movie can be so different than the other? It's like,
mm.
how do you even compare them against each other? Like, they're just two
Absolutely.
totally separate things. So I got to a point basically like a year or two ago when I was like, you know what? I'm just not even going to try to rank anymore. I'm not going to try to make, I'll say these are some favorites. I
Yes.
can't tell you these are my definitive favorites or even like people do a best of the year, 10 best of the year ranked. Can't do that. Like
Yeah.
and you know what? I'm like, you know what? I'm even going to just give up. I'm not even going to try anymore. It's just not how my philosophy
Hmm.
on looking at stuff. And I don't, and anyone who does look at that, I don't like, you know, judge them for it, whatever. Everyone, that's what I actually love is everyone sees films differently and, you know, relates to them and talks about them and everything differently. So I was like, okay, this is just my approach. So when
Oh,
thinking
look,
about your
my
question,
top five, quote unquote, are just the five I know I'm going to watch every year. Like, I know if I watch five movies each year, it's going to be these five. So they're not even necessarily my
interesting.
five favorites, but so yeah, like, even I don't follow the rules, and I created the show. So
Well, see, yeah, that's interesting because I don't even have, like, I've got movies that traditionally I watch every year. Like every Christmas, I watch um Legend. and I watch Marauders Metropolis.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. Nice.
I don't even know exactly how that combo got started, but it is a tradition I do every year. Like things like that. There are movies that I try to fit in every year just because they are comfort movies, but it's weird because I don't even know if I'd put those movies above other movies that I haven't seen for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just certain, and maybe it's because I've just seen them more so in my mind. It's like, you know, how they talk about like neuron transmittance. Like if a neuron goes to the same pathway, it starts to be kind of like the automatic pathway the brain goes to. Like if you feel like if you just watch something a little more than something else, then it just kind of becomes more of a go-to than something you may love equally or even more.
Absolutely.
So
Perfect. Look, I talk about this a lot. Like The Godfather, wonderful film. It is 3 hours long, and I don't always have time for The Godfather. I love it. I'll tell you what movie I've watched more than The Godfather, The Room. And it's not, they're not even, you can't even put them on the same level. But I know I'm going to get 90 minutes of fun and enjoyment out of The Room, even though it's arguably, not even arguably, definitively not as good as The Godfather. So I hear you.
that's hilarious. Well, they're both epics, obviously.
Yeah,
So
well, yes.
so yeah, like basically I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna try to think of 5 movies that I just love that are had a big impact on me or a big part of my life. And even that, even that was like almost torturous. All week
Yeah.
I've been like mulling it over, like, God, what do I pick? Like, how do I pick out of a lifetime's worth of movies? And then I was like, and then also it's like the criterion closet. You want a good list. Like you want, you want to like look cool and smart and sophisticated, like a cinephile, like this is my five.
That's what everyone does coming into this show. Whereas I'm like, it's so funny because my philosophy is like, hey, if every movie is someone's favorite movie, there are no bad movies. So it is a judgment-free zone, but everyone does try to come in with a cool list. I don't, I like, I think mine. I think my list has got some like kind of deep cuts in there, but I don't think it's like. I think people could look at my list and be like, poser. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think people look at my list.
Like you've never watched those movies. Don't
Yeah, like
play.
mine is very basic. It's Clerks, it's Back to the Future, it's Hot Fuzz, it's Kill Bill 1 and 2 because they're one movie, and
Mhm.
it was Midsommar, but I rewatched Desperado. I'm like, oh, Desperado. So like, there's some deep cuts in there, but I don't think it's there's nothing that's won awards in there. It's all just fun movies.
Okay, that's see that was fast too. You're just able to spit that out. Like I really had to take a whole week and
Well,
was
I answer that
going
question a
back and
lot because
forth.
people are like, what's your list?
Well, does your I guess well you mentioned you were gonna put Midsommar and then you changed it. So when you have your top five, does it pretty much stay the same or does it kind of change with you over time?
So Midsommar was on there for the last 5 years, and then I rewatched Desperado like back in January. I was like, oh my God, I forgot how much I love Desperado. So my view on it is that if true film fans, you don't have a definitive list. It's constantly in flux. There's always rotations. But I
Okay.
know if I watch 3 movies every year, it's going to be Clerks, it's going to be Hot Fuzz, it's going to be Back to the Future. Those are non-negotiables. They will be watched each year without a doubt. So.
That's cool. So you do like I guess comedy is a big one for you.
Which is interesting because I watch way more horror than comedy. Like I talk about the importance of like I would say I watch less comedy now than ever before, but those 3 films I think came at a time in my life um that was really important to me. Like Back to the Future became a very much a bonding film for my wife and I. And Hot Fuzz actually became that as well. And Clerks changed my life. Like Clerks, like everything after me seeing that at 16 years old, that set the tone for everything. Like I wouldn't have a podcast if I hadn't seen Clerks. I wouldn't be into
Whoa.
film as much if I hadn't seen like Clerks, like literally for better or worse, influenced every decision I made. So
All right,
uh
Kevin Smith, you hear that? You got a big fan over here.
you were talking about like sets before where like directors that like are really kind to their background guys. I'm pretty sure Kevin Smith's that guy. I think I was a yeah, I'm a big Kev head. Like yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can definitely judge someone on how they treat extras because
Yeah.
extras really are considered just the lowest level of existence in the, in the
Yeah.
film industry. And there are people who will treat you as such.
Yeah.
Like it is a hard thing. Like people think, oh, you're on a movie set, it's automatically glamorous. Like absolutely not. Like we are
No.
fighting sometimes for basic human rights. We're talking access to bathrooms, access to food, water, being in 100-degree weather, wearing 5 layers of clothes because you're doing a winter scene because everything's always got to shoot in the opposite month so it could be out but the month when it's supposed to come out. So Christmas movies always shoot in damn July. And things that are supposed to take place during the summer. Like this week, I worked on a show that is, I think, airing Sunday called, what is it called? Garden Point, Grow, Gross Point Garden Society.
Okay.
It's a new Peacock show. Just worked on it on Wednesday. And at least here in Atlanta, it was like 18 degrees pretty much. And we were in, because the show is about this like garden society in Michigan, which I guess not Michigan in the winter, Michigan, I guess in the summer, because we're all in little garden dresses and, heels. And when we worked that day, the PA was like, okay, so it's going to be a full day, but don't worry, we never go over 12. And we were all sitting there thinking, oh my God, you just jinxed it by saying that. Like, you don't say that at the beginning of you don't say we never go over. No, you don't say the word never, ever, ever on set, because that will, Murphy's Law, it will be what happens. So, of course, we did a 13-hour day, which, 1 hour more. But when you're in a little sundress and heels for 13 hours, that you feel every minute of the extra
Yeah, I
hour.
imagine. Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God. And it was windy, my favorite thing, wind. So it it was just a deadly combo that day. And so yeah, it's like, people can definitely get caught up in like the glitz and glamour like assumption with the job, but absolutely not. So when people are nice enough to like acknowledge you as a human, it goes
Yes.
a long
That's a
way.
big deal. It seems like such a simple kindness, but it's a simple kindness I think is often forgotten. So,
Well, and
yeah,
especially when you're the director, like the last thing on your mind, honestly, is the well-being of extras. You think as a professional and just a fellow human being with empathy and compassionate for your fellow man, like that would be just a standard, but no, like, and not to say people are like self-absorbed or like thoughtless or whatever. I mean, it's just they're at work too, and this is their freaking movie that they've been hired by a studio to do. Like, it's on the line for them. They don't.
yeah, for sure.
That's why they have PAs to worry about, like the background people. So when you actually have a director who takes the time, like you're talking about Kevin Smith, like who treats the background well, acknowledges them, like that's freaking huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Oh, so
Excellent. Sorry,
okay.
I started that tangent. That one's on me.
Nope,
Let's
nope,
we
nope.
we are now
I,
even more time, Paul. Let's
we
get
can
into
be
your
the king
list.
and queen of tangents, because I'm telling you, the undiagnosed ADH brain. I'll jump on that tangent and ride the transcontinental train all the way around with you.
Look, all the stories you've told, Nadia, like I could have you back on this show like 20 times. I feel like we wouldn't even scratch the surface. Like I have skipped questions because I just want to let you talk. So I could have you back a dozen times and we'd have heaps to talk
Oh my
about.
God. I've like blown up the format, the carefully curated format of your beloved show. I just come
No,
on it
not at
like,
all. This is
nah.
such a rarity. Like, to have someone come in and just be like, here are all the stories. And I'm glad you were able to because you said you haven't had a chance to talk about Captain America yet. That's awesome. I'm glad that I was able to be that for you so you could start talking about your experience. That's great. Um, all right.
But
So
okay, okay.
there is no ranking. We're
Yeah,
not
no ranking.
we're keeping it arbitrary, but just
Yes.
any
And
from the
so
five you've chosen. Yes.
the order that I did put it in is really just the order in which I first watched them, because I
Great.
was thinking
Love
about,
that.
okay, yeah, and I thought, okay, if I can't really like decide between favorites just out of the whole list of movies I've ever seen, I thought, let me pick some ones along my life timeline. So,
Mm,
but from childhood to now, some
yes.
options. So okay. So the first one then on that list is a movie I saw when I was about 4 years old, and I watched it over and over and over and over again. It was on. I had a roster of movies that I had
Hmm.
VHS tapes that I owned, because I didn't. My first little physical media collection wasn't that big. It was only a few. It was VHSs that I kept in a drawer.
Mm,
It was like I had my sock drawer, my underwear drawer, and then the very bottom, because I was little, so I put the most important thing on the bottom where I could sit on the floor and look
yep.
through it easily, was my VHS tapes. I don't know why I didn't keep them next to the TV or the VHS player. It was like my little protected area. I don't know.
No,
I
I
thought
did
that'd be
that with my
safe.
DVDs, and I've still got my VHS tapes as well. But yeah, I did that. I'm like, I want them nearby. They might not be near the television, but they're near me, and that's what matters.
Yes, it was like by my bed. I don't
Yeah.
know why, like I'm guarding them or something. But yeah, it was like I watched a lot of Don Bluth, a
Mm.
lot a lot of Godzilla, and then I watched Tim Burton, and I watched the one that I'm choosing to talk about, which is Robert Zemeckis' Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, what a great film to start with. You might be the first person to mention on the show, and that's a crime in itself.
Ah,
Um,
I mean, it was so many firsts for me. Like
yeah.
truly a movie. And this again is coming from someone, and I list those are the movies I owned, but I actually like you could say some of my favorite movies when I was 4 and 5 were actually horror movies. I just didn't
Wow.
own them. Like
Mm.
I watched on repeat Alien and Aliens,
Mm.
Jaws, the whole series that was available. But I really liked actually Jaws 3 because I was a huge SeaWorld fan when I was little, before
Yep.
like the truth about, the mistreatment of the orca
Oh
whales
yeah.
and,
There
Shanley's
was there was a
captivity.
horror film in there, just not the one that we saw on the screen. So yeah.
No, when you're little, you don't see any of that's behind. It's the showbiz behind the curtain thing. You're just there for like the wonderful entertainment. You're like, oh yeah, this is actually real life animals. But like, yeah, so it was Jaws, Aliens, Chucky,
Hmm.
1 through 3, and Tremors.
Yes. Okay.
And just the first one because the sequel hadn't come out yet till later.
Mm.
So those were like some of the movies I watched so much. But I didn't own. Actually, I owned Tremors. That was the only one I owned on VHS. So that one got really extra watched because I had to rent the other ones or catch them on TV. Um, and luckily there was a Blockbuster walking distance from my house. Like it was a little walk, but basically all I had to do was walk all the way down my street and get on a main road and not even have to go down that road. It was like literally across the street from the main road. So, especially like if my mom or whoever could take me to Blockbuster like less than 5 minutes from my house, and that Blockbuster had a McDonald's and a Burger King on each side of it.
Oh, perfect.
So, oh my God, like I can't tell you, that was my childhood right there. Like there's 3 establishments. It was just like, this is perfect. So I'd rent a lot of movies, but I owned the Godzillas that I watched the most. I owned, though I did rent, there was a little Godzilla section at that Blockbuster. So I rented a lot. And Don Bluth, I owned a few of his films, particularly Secret of Nim and All Dogs Go to Heaven. So I watched them the
Mm.
most, but I rented some others. Actually, I think I also owned An American Tail as well.
Oh, what a
Oh my God.
film. Yeah, I haven't seen
Oh
that
my
since
God.
I was
And
a
I want to
kid, but
rewatch that bad now,
yeah.
especially after like Real Pain and The Zone of Interest and all of these films. Even The Brutalist, it's like immigrants trying to
Yeah,
come to
yeah.
America to chase a better life that's not really there waiting for them. I mean, yeah, and that was before I knew that it was, a metaphor for like the Jewish experience, you
Well,
know.
that's the genius of that flick, isn't it? Like as a kid, just like, oh, these poor mice, and then you're an adult and you're like, oh no, like it's a whole
They're
second layer to it, which is, oh my goodness, yeah.
Oh my God. But it was interesting because his movies, are layered like that in general. And I always loved that. Like I wonder, I've probably seen that the least out of the other ones of his that I owned and watched. Because I think
Mm.
because like somewhere out there, that song made me bawl my eyes out. It was
Oh
one I
yeah,
could
that's
like there are a few movies growing up that I remember were the first movies that made me cry. That is one of them.
yep.
That Old Yeller and oh my God, what was it? There's several of them. Like, oh yeah, and in I can't remember which Godzilla movie it was. It might have been Mecha Godzilla, or even I'm trying to think. There's one Godzilla movie, and it's tough because so many Godzilla movies reuse footage from other Godzilla movies
Yep,
for
yep.
budgetary restrictions. So, watching them as a little kid, you could get them mixed up super easy. Like even now.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, I can't. I think it was Mecha Godzilla, but like, I grew up on Godzilla being a mainly a superhero, not a bad guy. And
Yeah.
so whenever he got hurt, it like really hurt my feelings because
Mm.
I even when in movies where he's not as overtly a good guy as some others, because some are he's just like in the more children oriented ones, he's more just overtly a superhero. But the
Yep.
other ones, even when he's like more of a um even when he's more of like more of a being of destruction, I still didn't want him to get hurt because in my mind he was still like a good guy, or
Yeah.
at the very least not a bad guy. Like maybe just a guy who's not supposed to be there and it's not his fault, but don't like try to kill him because it's not. It's like King Kong. Like it's not his fault he's in New York. You
It's
know, he's
I don't
not.
think there's any shame in crying at Godzilla. I told this story on the last episode. I cried during Venom 3 this year. I can't believe I'm saying that. I was like, if you had told me 5 years I was going to cry in a Venom film, I would have laughed at you. But there I was
Oh
bawling my eyes out in Venom
my.
the
Okay, I haven't
last.
seen that. I didn't get a chance to see it, so now I'm gonna have to watch it. Okay.
I think I'm the only one. Like,
You're like,
and
I don't know.
and Nadia, I cried twice. Like it was.
Oh my God. Venom 3. Okay. Okay.
And it's
But
because,
yeah.
and I will say this without spoiling too much, I talked about in the review that I recorded, very much what you're saying. Like it was a moment where he was being a hero, and like actually trying to protect a child. And I was like, that's, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. I might have been very tired, but I want to give credit to Venom 3. I'm gonna let them have the win there. Um,
Oh my God. Okay, so yeah, this one was just one that really blew my mind for someone who
yeah.
loves, some really big. I mean, all those horror films that I mentioned that I watch are all very special effects heavy.
Hmm.
And in terms of like practical effects, special effects in general, like, they're not like simple films in terms of the technical execution of them, and Godzilla especially. Like, so I was used to movies already by 4 and 5 like having a lot of technical achievement.
Yes.
But Who Framed Roger Rabbit? It was like,
Mm.
how does this movie exist? Like, I knew that it wasn't real because I knew that, like, I was a huge, again, I loved animated films. I have some other like Hanna-Barbera and Rankin and Bass produced
Hmm.
direct to video movies that I owned on VHS as well. So I had kind of an array of animated stuff I was already familiar with at an early age. I loved Looney Tunes. Saturday
Yes,
morning,
yes.
that's where it was, my little breakfast, sitting on the floor, like watching cartoons. So I did, like, it was weird. There was this weird cognitive dissonance, like probably one of the first times I experienced that, where it was like, I know this is not real because it's a movie and I know what movies are already, but like how, like, this seems real
How
because it
did Bob
was
Hoskins talk to Roger Rabbit? Like, how is this happening?
like, how is it so integrated? I didn't get it. It really messed with my head. And what was like so extra about it is like, it's almost like, really, to this day is so innovative. Like, it looks better to me than most comic book movie CGI.
It is a
Like,
magic trick of a film. Like, never mind the legal stuff behind the scenes, and that in itself is
oh my
fascinating.
God,
But
yes,
like,
Warner
it's
Disney.
how they managed to make it work. And we haven't really seen anything like it since. We got very close. There was a Disney Plus original came out a couple of years ago, and they did Chippendale the Rescue Rangers, and it was with Andy Samberg and John Mulaney, and it was very much
Ooh.
a Roger Rabbit, like it's live action integrated cartoon, and that was very reminiscent. It was a lot of fun, but like it's Roger Rabbit is just the gold standard. Like it's just it's a magic trick. Like there's no other way to describe it.
I mean,
Um,
it truly is cinema
mm,
magic. Like,
mm,
absolutely. And it's not like the showbiz curtain. Like, you could lift the curtain and it's still the show behind the curtain. Like,
hmm.
there is no like unveiling of the magic. Like, it is just so ingrained in its DNA. Like, it doesn't feel like you can separate it. Like, because I feel like there have been points in comic book movies where the CGI green screen compositing looks
Yeah.
like so not smooth that it
Yes,
like has
absolutely.
taken me out of like pivotal points in movies at times, to where I'm like, this is distracting me. Like,
Yeah.
and you don't get that. It is the opposite in Roger Rabbit, to where you could pause it and stare at a frame and be like, this looks like it is occupying space for real. And
Yeah.
not just how it's live action animation, like combined with the characters interacting with each other, but you have Roger Rabbit like picking up and having like a real cigar in his hand. Like
Yeah.
the character, the the tunes are interacting with physical real objects. Like, how do they do that? I still don't get it to this day. And I'm
Yeah.
working in the industry. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. And they could have just done what they did. They could have just done everything you've mentioned, and it would have been you were like, this is the most amazing thing I've seen. And then at the end, you've got Christopher Lloyd reveal, like the big reveal there, spoilers for a 40-year-old movie, but like that reveal, and you're like, how did they make that work? Like oh, you know what? I completely skipped Space Jam. Space Jam was probably the next one to do it. Space Jam also did it, but
Yes, I was going to say that was a really big movie for me because this
mm,
came out in 1988, so I would have been too young to see it when it came out. Like I would have only been like 2.
yeah,
But like so again, this was probably like 1990 or so, 91, 90 that I saw this for the first time. So
sure.
Space Jam was in 96. So that was probably the next movie I saw after this that utilized the same sort of techniques. And I got to see that in theaters. So I was like, when Space Jam came out, I was pumped. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, here we go
The whole
again.
world was pumped. I remember, like that was a crazy time. Everyone was all about
Oh my
Space Jam.
God. Like, yes, an event. Like everything about that movie was like marketed so cool, like a kid's dream,
Hmm.
like the soundtrack, basketball, Michael Jordan, Bugs Bunny, like Daffy. It was just all there.
Yeah.
Um, and that was cool to like see that again after being already familiar with that with this movie. Like, and now that I'm an adult, like I actually haven't rewatched it in a while. So I would
Mm.
really love, and I don't even know if I've seen it. I'm trying to think if I even rewatched it when I lived in LA, which is crazy because like it was one of those movies that was an early movie for me about LA.
Hmm.
And I grew up going to LA every summer with my dad, would travel out west for business. So I spent every summer for however, a couple weeks or whatever, going there and going all through California with him and spending a lot of time in LA during that time and Vegas. We'd also make a trip out to Vegas every time we went. So just the whole out west, like it was really cool for me to have that in my life. It obviously at 4 and 5, I hadn't really wasn't even that like self-aware
Yeah,
yet.
sure.
These like really, really early memories. But like just putting it in that kind of personal subcategory of like LA movies to me. Like I'd really love to go back, rewatch it after just now knowing more about the technicality like aspect of it, like how that works. And then also too, I mean, when I did live in LA, I did go to that tunnel, the that observatory tunnel, Griffith Park. What is it? The Mount Hollywood tunnel. Like I
Yep.
definitely I had to go visit that when I lived in LA, especially too because interesting. So this is an interesting tie-in to that tunnel because that tunnel is also used in Back to the Future too. It's the same
Yes, yes, yes,
tunnel.
yes.
Yeah. Yes, where Marty has this whole, chase with the hoverboard, which so it's so cool because like both of these movies were movies that I watched at the same time. Like Back to the Future was probably the first trilogy I watched.
Yeah.
And it was a movie similar to this, where again, I knew it was a movie, but it felt so real. Like them
Yeah.
going back in time felt real. And I used to actually have dreams about being on the hoverboard. Like I had a
Mm.
lot of reoccurring dreams as a little kid, like watching these movies all the time of like going like over the little pond Back to the Future 2 in front of the courthouse, like trying to go over the water or in that tunnel. So it was so cool, like growing up, seeing this tunnel in these two movies and then going to live there and like that tunnel's just there. And it's like, oh my
Yep.
God, like it felt very like a kind of a mixing reality and fiction where it's like the tunnel exists as itself because it's not animated, in Roger Rabbit, even though it's got tunes around it, it's still the real tunnel. So it was just like, oh my God, I'm actually here in front of it. And it's just cool because like, yeah, it was like a lot of firsts for me in terms of like, for instance, a movie that made me realize that an actor can be in more than one movie and
Yes.
play different characters. Because
Yeah.
since I watched Back to the Future and this movie pretty much at the same time, there was at
Christopher
some
Lloyd.
point, yes,
Yeah.
yes, at some point I made that connection that this is the same guy and that it really like messed with my mind. I was like, he's so kind-hearted and goofy in Back to the Future, and then he's so like crazy and scary in
Yeah.
Roger Rabbit. And I was
I
like, how
remember, and I think I'm about
person?
this. I think I'm about the same age as you because you mentioned growing up in, like in the late '80s, and that's me as
Mhm.
well. I remember the first time I watched Fellowship of the Ring, which was such a huge cinematic moment for everyone. and I had just seen The Matrix not long before. So when they get to
Mm.
Rivendell and Elrond's there, I'm like, well, he's definitely a bad guy. I'm like, I don't trust this Elrond. Like, I know Agent Smith's a bad guy. He's gonna like something's gonna happen because Hugo Weaving is so convincing as a villain, and I kept waiting for this big twist in the entire trilogy, and it never happened. So
Yeah.
I was, I was 13. You know what I mean? I wasn't even like, you couldn't even blame it on being six. I was a teenager and I was still convinced he was gonna be a bad guy.
I mean, it's funny how that like gets ingrained in your head though, because
Mm,
it's weird that like even though there was this like cognitive dissonance, like he was still very much definitively both characters for me.
yeah.
Like just as much, you know, Judge Doom as he is Doc Brown.
Yes.
And I just was like, how can he be both of these people at the same time? I didn't understand. I knew there were two different movies. I knew it wasn't real. I knew like he was characters, but yet it still couldn't understand how he could be in both things at the same time and be so different. And
Yeah.
another movie which I watched as an early age that really influenced me and highly influenced my own student thesis film, which I didn't put on this list, but wanted to, but I was like, oh, I'll talk about something else. But Creep Show with Leslie
Yes.
Nielsen. Like
Yes.
I first saw him in that, and he is so bad in that.
Yeah.
And then I saw stuff like Naked Gun and things that he is very comedic in, like
Yeah.
Dracula Dead and Loving It, like
Oh my God, what a
pure
film.
comedy stuff. Oh my God. So I was like, wait a minute. I thought this like it was really weird seeing him be funny and just like and not just funny, but like slapstick goofball funny, like
Yeah.
ridiculous funny. And I was like, wait a minute, but he's the scary guy who buried my crush Ted Danson, my third grade crush Ted Danson, like in the sand and killed him. Like, how is this guy now like making fart jokes or whatever? Like, I
Yeah,
don't get it.
I was raised on Leslie Nielsen as well, and I was it was the other way. I was introduced to the comedic stuff first. My dad raised me on Airplane and Naked Gun, and then
Yes.
just last year I watched Forbidden Planet for the first time, which of course he's in. A very young Leslie Nielsen as the commander of the ship, and I was like, oh my God, like this guy had a whole. He's in Prom Night as well. Like he's got this whole other career that people don't even
Ooh, I
think
haven't seen
about.
Prom Night. Well, he's in. I haven't seen Prom Night, but he's in. I think it's called The Day of the Animals,
Yeah,
'70s,
that
I think.
sounds familiar. Yeah,
And he is. Oh my God, he's an asshole in that too. So
yeah,
I guess he was an asshole first, or like not a comedian first or
seems
comedic as
like it.
much,
Yeah, yeah.
and then went into that because I only saw I saw Day of the Animals I think during the pandemic or something fairly in recent years, and he like it's basically like um something in the environment. It's almost like The Happening, but
Okay,
instead of I think it's I'm trying to remember exactly the catalyst, but something in the environment like pollution. Oh no, I remember. It's the ozone. The ozone is like thinning or whatever and is letting in whatever it's letting in is like fucking up everybody on earth. And it starts with the higher elevation, like people in higher elevated areas.
yeah.
And so there's like this town in the mountains, and like all the animals are more, animals are generally more sensitive and notice things before us. So it affects them first. And basically, it's like a day where all the animals go crazy and like start attacking everyone.
Oh
And
wow.
Leslie Nielsen is like this really like abusive guy that like, is like fucking with the people that he's like trapped with, and they're all trying to get down off this mountain, and he's just being a big asshole. And at one point, he like when it starts affecting the people, he starts to get even more irritable and more crazy, and ends up shirtless wrestling with a bear. So,
That's okay. That's the most amazing sentence I've heard in my life.
yeah, I just my perspective of him is just gone back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what range, So it was like that with Christopher Lloyd in this movie. It's just I really couldn't believe like that he could just be both.
Yep.
And it was just cool because there are like other tie-ins, like Bob Hoskins, like
Hmm.
not long after I saw this, I saw him in Hook. So it was like I was already, I loved Bob Hoskins like immediately from this
Yeah.
movie. I was like, I'm on the train with this guy. So when he came out in Hook, only like a year probably after I saw this one, I was like, all right, I'm a Bob Hoskins fan like for life.
Mm.
But it was just cool because it was just like the first movie where I was really starting to like I guess just one of those movies that made me start recognizing actors more in general
Yep.
and like and noticing them in other stuff. But like it was probably also my first gangster movie.
Yeah, for
because
sure. Absolutely.
yeah, because it is basically I think my first film noir other than Batman, because
Yes.
Tim Burton's Batman. So that and All Dogs Go to Heaven were
Mm.
two like animated type movies, children's films that actually dealt with like gangster life and the consequences, like kind of swirling around that. So that was interesting. And then um, just another first, I think, would probably be the idea of Jessica Rabbit, like having a sexualized character on screen for the first time. I
I
don't.
was wondering whether you're going to bring that up because cause I did watch Roger Rabbit a couple of years ago. Actually, you mentioned you hadn't watched it in a while, and as a kid, I never had an issue with it. I mean, I'm sure like internally, I'm like, oh, this is kind of sexy, but like as an adult, like we all like as we grow older, we get this kind of shame, and I'm like, should I be finding this attractive still? This is weird now. Um, but I think at the end of the day, like we just have to accept that if they're going to put sexy people in movies, it's okay to put sexy characters in cartoons, I guess. As
Yeah,
long as
I mean, well,
yeah,
I haven't seen it, but Cool World, Ralph Bakshi kind of does that too with his character in it, I know, which is
yes,
also a live action animated combo. So I think I think Zemeckis plays off of that with this character because, I
mm,
mean, when we're introduced to her, it's at a club and like men are literally like leering at her, like almost
yeah,
like the men in Metropolis leer at the robot Maria when she's dancing in front of them on stage. It's kind of a very similar voyeuristic thing. And she's taking advantage of that. Like she's very well, like she's not victimized, even though she's highly sexualized and maybe even reduced as a woman and a person, like down to what she provides for the people she entertains. But I think all of that is like touched on and played with. And I like that she even has fun and plays with that because she like fucks with the guys too,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
and I loved that. I guess I just never seen like such an overtly sexualized character or just sexy character in general in a movie. And then on top of it, how she just like kind of, even though it's like almost by nature kind of a victimization Marilyn Monroe type, where it's just like
Yeah,
someone who's going to be eaten up by men in Hollywood, and she just kind of owns it, even though she's like both the damsel in distress and
the femme fatale.
the femme fatale in one.
Yeah,
And I thought that was so cool. And I thought that like, and these are things that like I didn't pick up on like until a little later in life, just like
mm,
having more experience with like film history and stuff. But like I knew Betty Boop because I'd watched like older cartoons and stuff already as a little kid. Since I love Looney Tunes, I just liked cartoons in general and watched a lot of the 30s 40s stuff. Like I love Popeye and all this different stuff. So I already knew who Betty Boop was, and I already appreciated that she is in that scene with Jessica Rabbit, and she comes up to Eddie and she's like, "Hey, Eddie, I still got it, and she's kind of talking about how things are changing though, and I didn't really think about it, but some of the like the metaphorical layers in the movie, it really is like a really big commentary on Hollywood,
yeah. Oh,
and
absolutely.
and you can get, especially as a little kid, I mean, you're not going to really know about that. And you're just distracted by so much of the visuals. But like,
Mm,
it wasn't until later in life I thought about with Betty Boop in that scene where it's really, she's talking about things changing and how like Jessica Rabbit now is kind of the new star and she's just kind of accepting the passing of the mantle because,
mm,
she's like, it's sort of representative of this bygone golden era, like kind of going away and things transitioning. Like she was once the sex symbol of the 1930s. The movie takes place in the 19, I think 1947. So it's like kind of on a cusp of the going into the 50s.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
just like that it's sort of, Hollywood is always changing too with these new decades. Things are shifting. And I just like the idea that Betty Boop being there is sort of like representative things changing in Hollywood.
Mm, yeah.
And even when the movie was made in 88, certainly by 88, the way that people viewed cinema in general was changing so big in the 80s. And what people found sexy was way more overt, like boobs and stuff like that, which, Betty Boop and even Jessica Rabbit are a little bit more burlesque style,
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
more
It's
of the
a
tease, more of what you don't see, and that really changed in the 80s when this movie came out. So it's like a commentary about not only the time that it takes place in, but also the time in which it was made.
no, absolutely. I just want to put a pin in it for a second. Sorry. Oh, there we go. We just had a bit of a technical glitch there for a second. Sorry, Nadia, you were saying about Roger Rabbit?
Yes. So, in general, I love just the commentary that it has. Like, it almost reminds me a little bit of some of the ideas that you see in the Neverending Story, where it's like
Mm,
within the context of the story, you've got a threat to like beloved childhood nostalgia, the concept of it vanishing or changing with time. Because like, not only do you have this kind of conflict between old tunes and new tunes, like within the tune world. But then you've got like Judge Doom, who has this whole like meta concept that he's talking about how he wants to like decommission like the railway system and build like this like new era of freeways, which in real life that did happen. Like it's
mm,
prophetic because like the so it's this idea kind of this change, this transition, and think like the dip that he makes, which I didn't really realize. Again, like he talks about the ingredients of the dip that he uses to like kill the tunes with, and he
yes.
lists off, he's like acetone, benzene, turpentine,
Yeah.
he's like, I didn't know what any of that stuff was when I was four, but after doing like, painting and doing theater class and stuff like
Yeah.
that, I'm like, oh, turpentine, like that's the shit that you use to remove paint.
Yeah.
So like he's literally wanting to like erase the tunes using real life chemicals that would take away paint.
Absolutely. And like again, we haven't really touched on it yet, but it's one of those films where it's absolutely a kid's film, but it really walks that line where it's so tailored to an adult audience at the same time. You were talking about, the impact of Jessica Rabbit. Like Jessica Rabbit's not really for the kids. Like the kids can enjoy it, but let's be honest, like in the 80s, how do we get dad into the movie theater? Jessica Rabbit. And
Absolutely.
and
And
that,
did you ever go back and try to watch that still of her nude, that little quick controversial shot? Because speaking of the tunnel,
mm,
when Benny the what is he like, Benny the taxi car, whatever, he has Eddie Valiant and her in the car, and they're going to be going to Toontown or whatever. They're driving around, and he crashes
and
into
she
a
bounces out onto
tree.
the leaves.
Yes, and then
Yes.
there's like that full frontal shot. You bet when I found that out, I was like, "What?" And I had my VHS tape like when I got older, and I was like trying to pause it and put it in slow-mo. I was like, "I gotta find this." But I think that even that, it's like acknowledging it's like an extra step towards that voyeurism, like fourth wall break.
Mm,
Like, look, we know what you're thinking with this character, and we're gonna show it to you for half a second. Because
yeah.
like I love it. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people would be like, that is really fucked up to have in a children's film. And you know what? Maybe it is, but like this is also, I would say, more of a family film because there's way too much.
It,
Like,
it it very much in a way does, and I like as I said, and I may start another tangent, but it does what Bugsy Malone did. Like it's doing the same thing.
mm,
Like Bugsy Malone is absolutely a gangster film. They've just changed the ammunition with cream pie guns or whatever it's cream guns, and all the actors are children. But like that is absolutely a mobster film. Like don't make any bones about it. And I think that Roger Rabbit falls under that same umbrella.
yes, like it's got like death in it and darkness, and it's talking about real life stuff. Like I just love that. Like, it takes place in 1947, but like in, I believe, like by the 1950s is probably when more people started owning cars and things like that. And like there's that whole famous scene where Judge Doom is talking about his plan for the freeways, and Eddie Valiant's like, no one's going to drive on this so-called freeway when you can take the red car for a nickel.
Yeah.
And Judge Doom is like, oh, they will because I bought the train system and I'm going to decommission it so they have no choice. And it's
Mm,
like things like this actually still seem like really like relevant to this day. Like just, uh, like corporations and like, personal, I mean, hello, Elon Musk, people like buying up programs for their own personal interests and things that are like really pivotal to like functioning society, and even like put themselves in positions to like change the way that like economics in a country works, or
yes.
big like public systems, like things like that. Like I love that, like in a way, like it's ahead of its time but also like relevant to its time, because like
Absolutely. Yeah.
that kind of urbanization and city sprawl was really starting in the 1950s to happen, but also in the 1980s when the movie actually was made. You get this whole burst of consumerism and
Mm.
things like that happening. I think all of that, because he's not only Judge Doom is not only talking about the freeways, but he's talking about the effects the freeways are going to have. You've got places that are being taken over by all this urbanization, especially like California, which used to be all these pastoral lands, and now with the introduction of freeways, he's talking about, oh, you'll be, the cities will be lined with beautiful billboards, and restaurants that will make food quickly, and gas stations and cheap motels, and like all of that was definitely happening in the 80s from
Yeah.
the 50s onward. So it's really cool, and it just reminds me, speaking real quickly, like more about movies that are like LA kind of based movies. I love that like this takes place in almost the cusp of like 1950 and 1947, but it reminds me too a lot of Chinatown, which came
Mm.
out in 1974. This
Of
uh,
course.
takes place in 1947, and it's also about it's 1930s LA, and it's just interesting because it seems very similar with a movie being about it's basically movies that are about individuals or the government corporations like manipulating LA to the disservice of its residents. And in
Yeah.
this case, the water wars, like purposefully emptying like reservoirs when there's like active droughts happening in LA, and
Yeah.
especially relevant now with like the fires and all that sort of like theory about insurance companies and things. That's not just like people making moves behind the scenes to
Mm.
affect how it's to the disservice of the residents. Like it reminds me a lot too of like Inherent Vice, which you know takes place like Chinatown's made in 1974. Well, Inherent Vice actually takes place in the 70s, even though it's a modern film. And it reminds me a lot too, part of like Judge Doom's plan of like buying up land and basically like displacing people and things, big changes happening, like in that case the housing industry, and how building up all these like communities that are like pushing people out, like similar to what you get with what's happening now, like with people being pushed out of their homes, these communities being pushed out for like gentrification basically.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
just these films that show like how like the residents have been like manipulated over time, like not to their benefit. And I didn't know any of that obviously when I was watching this for the first time. So like these sort of added on layers of like historical relevance is just very interesting as an adult to go back and think like, well, this is kind of a movie that fits into that category. But like I
And
always like,
there's a crowd of people like it's a movie about a cartoon rabbit. And you're like, no, 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 like yes it is. You're absolutely right, but there's so much more to it. And even like just listen to you talk about it. Like I've thought about that film in quite a lot of depth, but you being, an American national, coming from America, living in LA, have this extra perspective that I've never had. And hearing you talk about it, and even making it relevant to today, it's like, oh my goodness, like this film, you don't want to use the word prophetic, but it does feel like it's definitely just like how The Simpsons always, predicting things.
oh my
It does seem to be doing a lot of work for us, and it just there's so much in it. Like there's so much to take out of this 90-minute cartoon live action hybrid film. Um,
yes, like I mean, who knew that with I feel like there's a handful of directors that really use like anthropomorphic execution, like that medium to like
mm,
delve into our reality with fiction.
mm,
And I was gonna ask, I'm trying to think now. I love that you get several things paired together that I don't know have been paired together since then. I haven't seen the new Space Jam, and I know like every character in fiction is in that movie.
yes, I
So
haven't seen it either, so I don't know.
I'm wondering, has Mickey Mouse and Bugs? It's got Daffy. It's got that dueling piano scene with Bob Clampett's Daffy Duck, which I love that they stuck era appropriate with that, because they've got Daffy
Yes.
versus Donald, and I don't know
Mm,
if they've ever been on a screen together before. And I love that it wasn't the Chuck Jones Daffy Duck, which would have been who was animating him when the movie was made in the 80s, but they actually went with the Bob Clampett one, which would have been era appropriate to when the movie takes place.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's a cool detail because people wouldn't recognize him at like the newer generation of Looney Tune fans like me wouldn't know who Bob Clampett is, but the old generation, like the OG generation who grew up in the 1940s would be like, "Oh my god, like that's the 1940s, Daffy Duck." So I don't know if they've ever shared a screen before. And then you also get a little scene with Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny sharing a
Yes.
scene before. And I'm trying to think, I don't know if Mickey Mouse was in any Space Jam. I don't I know he's not in the first one, but I don't know if he's in the second one.
The
So I'm like,
only
that's
film I
just a
can
cute
think
little
of recent
Easter egg.
time that might have got away with it was Ready Player One, because that seemed to have every character in it as well.
Ooh.
So I wonder if there is a nod, because I know I've only seen the film once, and I know they had a lot of IP in that flick, even just as cameos. So possibly
Mm.
something like that, but I haven't seen Space Jam 2, so I'm not sure.
But I
Um,
just love that's like a kind of little Easter egg thing that like as a little kid you're like, "Oh my god, my two favorite characters," but you don't understand like IP rights and everything like that
yes.
as a little kid. So when you become older and you realize like, "Oh, that truly is like a very special thing that you
It's
get
like
those two characters."
when there was that meme about 10 years ago when your mum's like, why wasn't Batman in the Avengers? You're like, Mum, oh my God, like I need to explain DC and Marvel to you. Like let me like do you understand IP, Mum? Like it wasn't even called IP back then. Like
Well, I could see it being for like more of a lay person. It's like, okay, it's comic book movies. Why can't
yeah.
they? They're both comic book characters. They're both superheroes or supervillains. Like, why can't they be in the same thing? And it's like, oh,
Oh, when
how
I was a
long do you
kid,
have?
I remember when Daredevil came out, Ben Affleck's Daredevil, and I was like, oh, they created a new superhero. I had no idea that he'd been around since the 60s. I wasn't a comic book kid. I found comics a lot later, like in my like kind of mid to late 20s. So I wasn't a comic book kid. So I was like, every time a new like when X-Men, I was like, oh, it's based on that cartoon. I didn't know there were comic books.
Mm.
Like Superman, I don't know what I thought Superman. I knew about Superman, but Superman was way off my radar as a kid. I wasn't a Superman kid until much, much later. Um, so yeah, so whenever a new comic book thing came out, I was just like, oh, like Ghost Rider, they must have made up this guy, this year. That's cool. And then you go in, it's like, no, no, Ghost Rider's been around for a long time, bro. So, um,
But that is so cool because it introduces again a new generation to these
mm,
characters, and I feel like Roger Rabbit could have definitely had brought back a resurgence for Looney Tunes.
mm,
I mean, I had already loved Looney Tunes, but there may have been kids who didn't know of Looney Tunes and then watched Roger Rabbit and been like, "Oh my gosh, like Bugs Bunny, who are these characters?" So I don't know. It really was just such a pivotal movie for me growing up. It just had
yes,
so much in it and so much more in it that I even realized at the time. Which you talk about a lot. I saw an article just the other day, and it was like movies that you watch as a kid and you rewatch an adult and they suck. And people were like in the comment section like listing that what movies were like that to them, and it made me think of I saw the TV Glow, where you've got Owen, the main character in that, being obsessed with this show when he's in high school and then watching it later in life and being like, this is not really all that in a bag of
yeah,
chips that I thought it was, like this is a bit of a disappointment and even almost, and because he was so invested in that show and that was like such a part of like his personality, he'd made it like basically the building blocks of like who he was and wanted to be, that when he went back and re-experienced it all these years later and when it didn't hit like it hit before, it was like a huge blow.
yeah,
And luckily this is not a movie like that. If anything, it's the opposite, and it becomes even better because now you get all the references in there that you didn't understand before. And to me, the best family entertainment is stuff, and from this is from cartoons like I was a Nickelodeon kid, so I grew
yeah.
up
Me too.
off.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So like, Rocco's Modern Life,
Hmm.
like a lot of these shows, like even how uh, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like a lot of
Yes.
people are talking about with Nosferatu coming out last year about how SpongeBob SquarePants actually introduced them to Nosferatu. But for
Mm.
me, Nosferatu was introduced by an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, which had a whole episode basically that was almost like The Last Action Hero, where Nosferatu comes out of the screen
Oh,
into the
that's cool.
Yeah, and it's like a whole homage to that. So like I just love that you could watch something and have this identification with it at an early age for all these things and then rewatch it later and be like, whoa, this is like so much more expansive and like layered than I thought. And it makes you appreciate it even more so that you don't feel regret or embarrassment or whatever about the things you loved as a kid. It
Mm,
actually just becomes even better because it was always made to be multi-layered,
mm.
to be not just I hate to say it. I don't watch a whole lot of children's stuff now, like a lot of Pixar and stuff, even though I know Pixar's good and all this, but like a lot of children's entertainment to me now is way more like I feel it's less timeless because I feel like Roger Rabbit was both like ahead of its time, and is timeless. Like it's hard to achieve
Absolutely.
the trifecta of that. And I feel like a lot of children's entertainment now is really like it gets dated fast. It has a lot of pop culture references. It has a lot of tropes like annoying sidekick characters,
Mm.
and like things like you don't see in a lot of older children's entertainment. A lot of older children's entertainment to me was a lot more made for everyone in the family, like equally for the child as it is for the adults who are taking their children to the movies. So everyone has something they can get from it. And not to say that children's entertainment now doesn't. I mean, it does, but I just feel like it is geared less towards adult ideas.
No,
Even,
you're absolutely
you
right.
know,
Like, and they're a lot safer, I find as well. I think the exception may be the Leica films. I don't know if you've watched all of them, but they did Paranorman, they did Kubo and the Two Strings, and they seem to work a little bit more of that line of children's entertainment, but also there's some substance in there for the adults. And maybe some of the DreamWorks stuff, like Shrek, obviously it was 20 years
mm,
ago now, but
I
that does
know.
play a little bit. Yeah, I was a kid when
See,
that came
again,
out.
that's a long time now,
Yeah.
and it's like, and this is even older than that. Like
Mm,
the whole boot execution scene where he slow like Judge Doom slowly dips that poor little boot that can't talk. All he can
mm,
do is squeal and cry, and it is a slow death right before
yeah.
that dip. And you have to watch it all happen. Like it doesn't really cut away from it. You are watching that thing die a slow, painful, excruciating death. I was not prepared for that. And I don't think you could ever be prepared for that. I don't think any rewatch makes you more prepared for that. And I don't think they do that today. I mean,
No,
I don't know.
well,
Again, I don't
there's
watch as
one
much.
person who does it, and it's to bring what brings us full circle is Ari Aster does that. Like that is an Ari Aster scene.
Mm.
You are slow and uncomfortable for the entire scene.
And I just don't feel like a children's media would ever do something like that today. I mean, I think you're kind
No.
of hard pressed to find murders in children's movies anyway. I mean, at most, I feel like you're going to get more of a either a tragic accident, like, oh, my parents died in a car crash or something, or it's like a death in terms of a natural passing. Like something I liked about The Wild Robot, even though it wasn't my favorite movie or animated movie or whatever, I did really appreciate that it represents animal death in
Mm,
nature as just a death being a part of everyday life as much as life itself is, that death is a part of life and you cannot separate the two. And it had a lot of animal death in that movie, but a lot of it was handled very quietly, and it wasn't like a whole sequence or a
oh,
tension building scene or anything. It was just like, this thing is now dead in the snow, we can't help it, that's
mm.
just how it is. And I really like that. And but that is, I feel like, is most as you get, or like you have someone's grandma dying who's old and they lived a long life and they die, whatever. You don't get literal torture.
No,
I mean,
no,
that
that
boot is being tortured and it is crying and it's screaming and is begging for its life. And I really like, I feel like now you may get a little tease of that, but there's no way they'd go through with it. Something
no,
would stop
not
it.
anymore. Disney doesn't really do that to the parents anymore in their films. I'm trying to think of the last Disney film I saw where a family member was the sacrifice of the hero's journey. And might be Big Hero
Mm,
6. I'm trying to think if there's anything since then where a family member has been killed to drive the plot forward. And I don't
mm.
know if there's been much of that anymore. Um,
I
it's
mean,
a
like there's Up, his wife dies, but that's
which
like
is
a
but that's
natural.
before Big Hero 6. That's 2007 or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it's like that. I feel like natural cause old death is like as
Mm,
best you're gonna get, or again, tragic accident.
yeah.
Nothing like murder,
No,
torture.
no.
Something is begging to stop. I'm
Yeah.
like, Yeah, that's an envelope that would not be reopened today. That thing, that ain't gonna be pushed today. Which I don't know. Maybe it's for the best because it was pretty traumatic. But at the same time, like it it wouldn't be the same movie without it
Yeah.
because it gives you a sense of danger that
Mm,
I don't feel like you get in a lot of children's stuff. Like even with Harry Potter, you always knew Harry was never going to die. Even when he dies, he ain't dead.
yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
it was like a
Exactly.
comic book character like, "Oh, Wolverine's dead." No, he's not. No one's dead,
He got some of that fancy adamantium that you can find in Captain America: Brave New World to bring it all
to bring
back.
it all the way back full circle.
I am the master of the segue. Nadia Robertson. For the audience listening, they're like, "Why?" He said, "Why does he sound like he's wrapping up?" We've talked about one movie. We have talked about one movie, but we are sadly just about out of time. We've gone for. You've been so generous with your time today. You've given me so much. And for those who are wondering what's going to happen, Nadia's going to come back. We are going to work through the rest of her list because I could listen if I didn't if I didn't have a family, Nadia, I would just do this for 12 hours. This is amazing. You've been such a wonderful guest. You've had so many wonderful stories and given me such a great peek behind the curtain at what it's like to be a working actor and working on Marvel movies and horror movies and the delicious Patrick Wilson, my words. Um, yeah, oh my
I should have
goodness.
done that when I saw him just gone. It would have been like
That might have been
security,
less awkward than big fan,
security.
big fan.
Big fan, big fan.
Before we get
Oh
out of here,
God.
Nadia, and again, thank you so much. I can't express how much this important this has been to me. It's been fantastic. What have you got going on? Where can people find you online? Where can they follow you? What should they go and watch right now?
Oh my. Okay. Well, obviously we got Captain America. I'm in the season finale of Agatha. I was also just in Your Cordially Invited, which speaking of comedies, I feel like I hate that that went streaming because that also, like Captain America, has not had the kindest reviews. But Amazon Studios did have a like special screening of it the night before it actually streamed on Amazon Prime.
Mm,
And I didn't recognize any crew or other BG there other than my fellow BG friend that I went with.
okay.
And so it looked like it was just a bunch of random people that saw there was a screening of this movie and it was a pretty full theater. And like from the start to finish, people were laughing so much that it made me laugh even more than like
Nice.
would have normally, especially like it's just not the same when you're sitting at home by yourself watching it
Comedy is
while you're,
for a theater, and that's what the studios aren't doing, man. Like we had
no.
Anyone But You last year, which I quite enjoyed in the theater, and the year before that was it No Hard Feelings? What's the one with Jennifer Lawrence?
Yes, which I got to work with Andrew Feldman on Saturday night, and
Of
he is just
course. And
he's
we
such a
like
little delight.
you have to come back to talk about Saturday Night. Like we will talk about because that is one of my favorite films of 2024. And I can't wait to hear more about that. But go and check Captain America. Don't listen to the reviews or people online. Don't even listen to me. Like go
Yeah.
vote with your own money. But it's a fun flick. And Nadia, I didn't see her, but I'll be on the lookout now. Oh, you okay, kiddo? My daughter just headbutted an open drawer.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
so we'll take care of that in a moment. And where can they find you online? What are your socials if you want people to come and check out your work?
Well, I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram, Roll Tide 1931. I'm also on Letterbox under Nadia Robertson. I believe Roll Tide 1931 might also be my name on there. And then I've got my podcast, which is called, and again, in quotes, loosely quotes, podcast. Me just trapping you like I did on this podcast for 3 hours and talking endlessly, but it's called Cinema Chats. You can find it anywhere you find podcasts, on Spotify or wherever.
It's
And
wonderful. It is so enthralling. If you have been hanging on the edge of your seat like I have for the last 3 hours, like Nadia's podcast is just it's even better than what she's done here because she's not getting interrupted by me constantly. It's just her talking in this free form, like kind of train of thought discussion about film. And like as someone who loves talking about film, like listen to this episode, listen back, think about how many times I spoke. It's so minimal because I was just like, please, the Jedi is here, the Padawan shall sit and watch. Um, yeah, your
and a
podcast is
special
wonderful.
shout out, I'll say real fast, is that I have got a book that I contributed to.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, another friend that I connected with via social media, Stephen Peros. He asked me to contribute 5 chapters
Oh my
to,
goodness.
yes, to his upcoming book called Cinema Bizarro. And I got a list of B movies and I chose I gave him a list of ones I'd like to talk about, and he out of those lists he gave me five to do. And so I've got five titles that I wrote on, and that is about to drop. And it's funny because I got the assignment right before I started on working on Saturday night. So
Oh wow.
I basically was like, I will do this, but I can't start on it yet because I am working Monday through Friday, 12 plus hours, a day on Saturday night for like a little over a month. So I was like, this is going to have to wait. And so basically, I didn't, I had like a deadline. It had to be done by a certain time. And I was like, oh Lord, like as soon as I get this assignment, I can't even start it for like over a month. So I was like, oh, so basically, I just spent the rest of my time before the deadline just getting all this writing out. So finally, it's about to be published and released. So you can check out my thoughts on five movies. And yeah, that's the first like book that I've contributed to. So I did contribute to another anthology series for horror, but it was fiction. So this is
Mm,
my first time like having, and I've been published a couple times for movie reviews in magazines, but just one at a time. So this is like
sure.
my first movie review book. And then also like the first time I've been assigned like chapters. So that was cool. So you could check me out, Cinema Bizarro.
Awesome. Well, as soon as that comes out, you'll, I'm sure, promote it all over Instagram, and I'll, of course, throw shout outs to the links as well so people can go and get it. But oh my goodness, what an incredible 3 hours this has been. I hope everyone's enjoyed it as much as I have. Again, it's a huge thank you, Nadia Robertson, for making time in your huge schedule. You've had a very busy few years making all sorts of wonderful movies. We will have Nadia back as soon as her schedule allows us. We can finish her list and dive into her life. We haven't even talked about her life about it as a film fan. We've only
Oh,
covered the last couple of years. So we'll dive into that. We'll do a bunch more fun stuff. And Nadia's welcome as often as she wants to come. But thank you all for listening. Follow me on all my socials. I'm not going to do too much plugging, just focus on Nadia and her work. Um, New co-hosts, official co-hosts are joining the show in the next week or so, so look out for them. Nick and Maddie will make their official debut as co-hosts. But until then, thank you for listening. As I say every week, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.